Brought to you by Sumner One.
Guess what day it is? Huh? Hump Day?
Good morning, everyone, and happy Hump Day from the opening drive on 101 ESPN in St. Louis, where it is 7 o'clock. Your time check brought to you. I have my here, you want to hear my volume up on my, I shouldn't do that? Okay. I have no idea why my volume is up on my computer, but it is. There we go.
Off to a good start, Randy.
Oh, we're rolling. Yeah, we're technical wizards here. 7 o'clock time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Brooke Grimsley, Danny Mack, Matthew Rocchio, Randy Carricker. Great to have you with us. And, man, it's so nice to wake up in the morning in St. Louis after the 84 degrees that we had yesterday and have it be 28.
Randy, your second alert weather was very accurate yesterday because I was like, surely there's no way it's going to be that dramatic of a change weather-wise this morning.
It was that dramatic, and please don't call me Shirley.
That's a good reference. I still was not expecting that this morning.
Why do you encourage him? Don't laugh at it's like old dad jokes.
I know.
And Rocc needs to take away his little sound effects thing and just, Randy can't even get the show going without having the
technical difficulties.
Well, that was the YouTube on the computer. You want me to take the man's 360 machine away?
All right.
Yeah. Chop off his foot while I'm at it.
Yeah, don't do that.
I try. I try not to, but he was right. He was right about the weather.
How about that? So the weather was good down in Florida yesterday. The Cardinals playing to a 2-2 draw with the Boston Red Sox. Redbirds back at it today against the Mets, and John King got knocked around a little bit.
How about Sonny Gray, though, Randy?
Sonny Gray. I was telling Brooke, man, if he can do that every start, if he can give you 6 innings and allow 6 runs every start. Did he allow 2? No, he allowed shutout ball. He 2 innings, 2 hits. So yeah, 6
2
shutout,
walks, 2.
But 6 shutout innings every time. He takes them out. Yeah, 0.0. That'd be better than Bob Gibson in 1968, for gosh sakes.
I don't know if it'd be that good, but I'd take it. Bob Gibson had a string of like 9-inning games of 15 in a row or something like that when he got to 1.12.
Yeah,
and. I don't think anything will be, you look at that season, and it's such a different era of baseball, it'll never be matched.
No. Here's the thing. He threw 304 innings. Now you're happy if 2 starters get 304 innings.
He had 251 wins, 255 complete games.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So good for Sonny, though, and good for the Cardinals to come away with a 3-3 draw against the Red Sox, whose fans, by the way, are a little bit upset because they haven't signed Jordan Montgomery yet. And Jordan Montgomery's wife is a dermatology resident in Boston. He spent his offseason in Boston.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently wants to be there. And the Red Sox have yet to sign him.
By the way, if you were holding out hope for Jordan Montgomery to land in St. Louis, it looks like, according to multiple reports now, that Jordan Montgomery is not interested in returning in St. Louis. For those who are maybe holding out some hope for that happening.
I think the Cardinals look at their rotation, whether you like it or not, and are satisfied with what they've got. Because of the depth that they have, that they think they have. We'll find out if it's going to be that way as it gets tested throughout the regular season. But I think the Cardinals are happy with what they got. They fixed the middle of the infield issue with Brandon Crawford. So this is their team, I think, going forward, barring serious injury.
I am with you. I think that's what we have. Last night, CONCACAF Champions Cup action in Houston. The Dynamo, it was my fault. They blank St. Louis City SC 1-0. Clean sheeter for the Dynamo. They do indeed wear orange, and so they advance 2-2 aggregate. Houston advances on away goal tiebreakers, which is really, I don't know why every league doesn't do away points tiebreakers. I think that's just really a smart way to go about it. I stayed up. I was thinking that we were going to rally, but we didn't.
It did not happen. Now,
Matthew?
Rocc, I want to ask you about this because it seems like health is now becoming a concern. You're playing with a patchwork back line, and then it seemed like you have injury after injury after injury happening. How big of a concern is that?
The one thing I will say is that the back line wasn't the biggest issue. Like, you're going to put the spotlight on them because they made the mistake that cost the goal. But overall, when you consider that, you're dealing with guys out of position, and Akil Watt's playing left back, and then Nerwinski has to kick inside to center back from where his nominal spot of right back. So, like, you're changing positions, and then Wenzel's in on the short-term loan. He played pretty well. So, yeah, they made a mistake that cost you the goal, but they're not the reason the City lost last night. City lost last night because they couldn't thread 2 passes together without turning the ball over. That's why they lost.
It was sloppy. By the way, City has won 5 of their last 18 matches.
That's not good.
So maybe they're coming back down to earth a little bit. Other organizations take them a bit more serious. I did find it interesting, the difference in the crowd there as opposed to what you see in St. Louis.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's eye-opening of how this town supports soccer. It's great.
It's amazing. And Matthew and I were talking about it before we got on the air. City just needs to get into the greasy areas a little bit more. They need to get into the crease. They need to take away the goaler's eyes, and that's how you score in this league. You need to be a little bit more physical. You never fail by going to the net.
Offsides does make it a little tricky to screen goalies, Randy.
Dan's not dealing with it.
I'm just waving you off. Off to the next subject.
You have to humor him.
No, you don't. I've known Randy for the majority of my life. You just got to move on. That's all you got to do. You just go, come on, let's move on. You've had your say, and you just got to move on.
We got some people to go to the greasy areas. We just started doing
stop. Stop it. Stop it.
Oh, man. So I'm wrong?
You. That's what's wrong.
You see, Dan, even if you try to get him to move on, it doesn't necessarily happen.
Oh, I just shut up. That's how you do it. He looks at you for something to say, and nope. Just move on.
But to Brooks' point, I also think you have to consider the fact that you're usually a very high-pressing team, and that's how you created a lot on Tuesday against Houston. They didn't do that last night, and I wonder how much that was
string a pass together.
I know,
like you said.
I wonder how much of that was connected to the fact that they're worried about pressuring an inexperienced backline that's playing out of position, because that game plan looked completely different than the one that they used a week earlier against the same team. Whereas I think Houston did a lot of the same things they tried on Tuesday, the week before, that City was just stopping.
Sometimes, why do you get sloppy? From when you're tired. It also looked like a tired team, in my opinion. But, that's part of the deal, and you got to move on like we are right now before Randy starts talking about getting in the corners and paying a price and being physical and getting to the greasy areas.
You got to sacrifice.
I'm trying to drive us back out of the ditch.
I understand. I get it.
Kearney will get them going. They play on Saturday against NYC over at City Park. So we'll beat them. NYC. Right?
Yeah, New York City FC, not Red Bull.
Not Red Bulls.
Yeah, Red Bull is the one that also plays a lot of
Red Bulls are always charged up, man. They're always playing with a lot of energy.
So, Brooke, did you have a good day yesterday?
I did have a good day yesterday, Dan.
Yeah, what'd you do?
I just hung out, did some planning, getting ready for Arizona last week, worked out.
And for people that don't know, Arizona would be your bachelorette party.
Oh, yes.
And what days are you going?
I will be there from Thursday until Sunday.
Thursday till Sunday in Arizona.
Yes.
Beautiful.
There we go.
Now move on, Randall.
I ran into our old friend Andy Van Slyke the other day and was telling him about going to spring training in Arizona. And he agrees with me. He says, that is so much better than Florida. And it is. It's
really?
Just because every team is within 45 minutes of each other. And it's a real town. Not that Jupiter's grown up and is a real town now. I mean, Jupiter's awesome. But you can go to a hockey game, you can go to a basketball game. You obviously can go to 2 games a day because you've got day and night games in Florida or in Arizona that are close to each other. So that's good for you to go to spring training in Arizona.
Yeah, that's what we're doing for our bachelorette. Just fully spring training down in Arizona.
You're not going to see one pitch thrown on a bachelorette party.
I was asking right now, I was like, is there a way that I can campaign for my bridesmaids to do that for one day? Probably not.
Not a chance.
Yeah, probably
not a chance.
Last night in Winnipeg, it was also cold. Blues fell behind in the first period. 2-0 on goals by the Irishmen, Sean Monahan and Brendan Dillon. And then Pavel Buchnevich scored for the Blues, but they lost by a score of 4-2. Actually played probably as well as they can and still lost to the Jets 4-2.
As well as they can? That's the thing is, we've seen them play better, and so it's just kind of hurtful and a little bit confusing whenever you see this happening.
I thought the first period was rough. The start was rough. The Jets came out guns ablazing. The Blues did not have a shot on goal until 5:37 of the first. They actually have been outscored in their last 7 first periods 12-3. And we talked about it under Craig Berube, how they got off to slow starts and that had to change, and it looked like it was changing. Guys, in a span of 12 days, the Blues went from the potential of being up 6 points on the Predators. They had that Saturday game in St. Louis. I was actually at that game. I thought they were going to win. Then Ryan O'Reilly kind of took over late, and now they are 6 points back. So the Blues 1-4 since that game, and the Predators have put together a 6-game winning streak. The Blues do have 2 games in hand. But what's kind of interesting here, I was looking at the standings this morning. So the Blues are 6 points out of a playoff spot, but yet 4 points away from being the 8th worst team in hockey record-wise.
Yeah.
This is who they are.
And they have 2 games in hand. This is exactly what Doug Armstrong said before everything got started. After the loss last night, and by the way, the Blues did outshoot Winnipeg 38-32. They got out hit, but they had way more attempts at the net. Here's head coach Drew Bannister. Coach Drew.
Yeah, I mean, find ourselves chasing the game early on. We had some opportunities in the first offensively where we didn't convert. But look, I thought there was 2 mistakes in the game that made the difference on the third goal and then obviously on the fourth goal. We gave ourselves an opportunity in the second with a real good second to get ourselves back into the game, and then, we make that mistake and we don't have an opportunity to tie it up at the end. But certainly a better effort, but we still got to find more from our group.
And Bolduc with a crossbar, if he's able to score on the crossbar, then all of a sudden you have a tied game, and it's competitive. But the Blues obviously didn't score, and they really didn't give themselves another opportunity after that either.
No, they really didn't. And with Joel Hofer, it was an okay game. I wouldn't say a great game, but at the same time, and I've talked about this with Jordan Binnington, you can't expect your goaltender to be your superhero every single game. And you're asking your goaltender to make grade A save after grade A save. And I just think that they're putting so much pressure on them when there's these little mistakes that they could really help keep away from him. I look in the second period, that could have been a huge moment there. What was it? Under 5 minutes left to go, and Kevin Hayes, there's just a really sloppy moment there. Luckily, Joel Hofer was able to bail him out. And not trying to call out specific players, because it should not be just on these guys like Kasperi Kapanen and Kevin Hayes, but there's been some big mistakes by those guys here.
They were -3. They were -3. Kapanen benched in Detroit and then had 3 shifts in the third period last night. So obviously they're not real happy with him. They had 2 careless plays with the puck. That led to 2 goals. And it shows you that they have to be precise. If they're not precise in playing pretty much their game at a high level, they're just not going to win. The passing was not efficient. The top line, I'll give them credit. They did rebound from the poor effort against Detroit. And now you think about the trade deadline and where you're at if you're Doug Armstrong, and maybe this gives them some clarity going into this. Buchnevich has 6 goals in his past 6 games, so if a team is looking to add some thump up front, some scoring, they might look in that direction. And the 5 games before the deadline, they've got the Oilers tonight, the Wild, the Flyers, the Islanders, the Devils, only one of those at home. So it's a tough stretch before March 8th, and that is the trade deadline in the NHL.
If you're Doug Armstrong, you're listening to every single serious offer right now.
Everybody.
Because you have to, because they are showing you who they are currently.
Who's untouchable?
Robert Thomas.
Yeah.
And you talked about it yesterday, Brooke, about how Kyrou says we need to be better. And in the pregame skate yesterday, Robert Thomas, and you talk about accountability, he said, it's on me. He said, it's on me, mentioned himself. By the way, Robert Thomas is having such a good year, and I think it's going under the radar. The Blues are at the bottom 5-on-5. They're like bottom 5 in the NHL. And this guy's top 20 in points and top 15, I think, in assists in the NHL. So it's not like you're handing the puck to Connor McDavid and letting him go, one end of the ice to the other, and you pick up an assist because he scores. Robert Thomas is making plays. He's having a really great year under the radar, I think, when you look at the big picture of the Blues.
Yeah, you can obviously win a Stanley Cup with him. I don't know if he's going to be a centerpiece to a Stanley Cup champion, if he's going to be a star guy, and he could be.
Maybe he's 1A.
Yeah, he could be. He's got that sort of talent, but he just needs a supporting cast right now. And we've talked about it before. You talk about how precise they need to be. When your third line is Hayes, Kapanen, and Saad, That's a fourth line. That might not even be a fourth line.
Kapanen might not be on the ice.
Right. Same with Kevin Hayes, all due respect.
Yeah, he was -3 last night.
Yeah, so the Blues need to upgrade their talent so that they don't need to be perfect to win games.
Yep, I'm with you. I think Robert Thomas, to your point, Randy, if you got him playing with a couple of elite players, and I'm not saying that Kyrou can't be that way. It seems like at times maybe he could be that way. Buchnevich is a good player, but I mean elite. It would be scary to see what he could do.
Yeah.
Scary.
Well, I'm looking forward to one day soon seeing Jimmy Snuggerud on a line with Robert Thomas.
We'll find out.
And apparently Minnesota, they're a lock for the Frozen Four. And I don't know that it's going to make sense for the Blues. I don't know if the timeline will set itself up so that it'll make sense for them to start the clock.
I don't think it would. But I think you made a great point yesterday. You're going to sign him anyway.
Yeah.
You know, so maybe you bring him up and let him get his feet wet at the NHL level and maybe catch lightning in a bottle down the stretch.
That's what the Blues are thinking. It's all dependent upon how quickly Minnesota gets knocked out of the NCAA tournament. But if they get knocked out in the first round, the Blues will be negotiating with them, trying to get them here.
Do you guys think the Blues make the playoffs now?
No.
6 points out.
No.
With the tough schedule they have coming up.
Yeah, with the tough schedule, and then also how quickly things have changed. Because, Dan, I'm with you. That Nashville game, also that Detroit game, I think that maybe they were trying to get that bad taste out of their mouth with that performance last night. But still, you're not having guys step up in moments where they should be stepping up.
Yeah.
Instead, you're having guys falling behind, as we mentioned, as Kasperi Kapanen and Kevin Hayes. But there's others as well.
You know, we were talking yesterday about Braden Shen. I loved what he did. He was outweighed by about 15 pounds and got into a fight early in the first
With
period.
Adam Lowry.
Yeah, and just trying to, that's what a captain does.
Yeah.
And we were talking about him yesterday. It hasn't been a great year in terms of scoring and numbers that he's putting up, but that's what a captain does, and he did it last night.
Blues at Edmonton tonight. We've got a 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock face-off here on 101 ESPN. It is Hump Day. It is Ask Uncle Randy Day. Get your text in to the Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646, 314-399-YO-HO. Your questions for Ask Uncle Randy coming your way on 101 ESPN.
I've been around, you know.
You can watch us on our Air Alliance Team studio cam. Just go to YouTube and type in 101 ESPN STL. Subscribe to the channel and watch Brooke, Dan, Randy, and Matthew as we bring you Ask Uncle Randy here on 101 ESPN. Matthew Rocchio has the text with your questions for us as we really do approach spring here in St. Louis. And you know what happens with spring and young love. So, Matthew, what do you got for us?
Well, actually, I'm going to pivot to what else we love in spring, which is basketball.
Oh, yeah.
Because they want to know, Randy, what is your take on the people proposing the countdown clock for fans to storm the field/court? Who determines the use of the countdown, and would it ever be... would there ever be a game, or would the home team's athletic trainer make the call, or would it take away from the euphoria of storming the court?
I think the smart play here is just to not storm the court anymore. Once you injure a player, I don't think that a countdown clock makes sense. I think what you need to do is just keep people in the stands. And
pretty simple, isn't it?
Yeah, who was it? Was it Billis that said that just lock all the doors if they storm the court and arrest everybody?
Yeah.
How do you stop this? I feel like there has to be some sort of threat of you will be kicked out of school, possibly.
I would say security with guns at knee level.
Oh, nope, that was not what I was thinking, Randy.
Oh,
a little much.
Stop it.
That was not what I was thinking.
That's Uncle Randy for you.
Well, that's true.
I'm raw here. I'm
raw emotion.
The real deal. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. No, I think what you have to do is you do have to ultimately have enough security to arrest multiple people so that randomly, if somebody does run on the court, that they can spend a night in jail and it'll cost them to run on the court.
Here's the thing is that I agree with you. I think that it's gotten a little bit out of hand. And Dan Patrick actually had a great discussion about this the other day, that he believes that it was ESPN that really just fired this up even more, glamorizing it because of that big moment, where it kind of takes away from the big moment because we're seeing it happening so frequently. But at the same time, it is amazing that we haven't had that many big injuries come out of the storming of the court so far. So you have that counter argument.
So this is just storming of the court. I've been thinking about, what do you do in football?
Remember, I think this is one of the great moments in Mizzou history when they beat Nebraska in 2003 and stormed the field. It was awesome. And there are great photos of that event. But you've got to find a way to stop it. And there's got to be an efficient way to stop it. Then it's stupid for the SEC to fine the schools, but I think what you have to do is you have to make it prohibitive for people to wind up on the field.
What you do is what Auburn has is that you have those bushes, so the fans will still go out in the field, but you slow them down and possibly trap them.
And maybe bushes with rose bushes or something.
No, not those.
What about, as you said, a countdown clock? Other team gets off the floor, and then at that point, let them do what they want. I mean, because they're not going to hurt, you would think, the home team. And if you're worried about issues with the opposing player getting hurt, then that's the way to do it.
If you're going to do it, that's probably the best way to go about it.
Yeah. Mizzou, by the way, arrested like 8 or 9 kids when they stormed the field after Oklahoma, and then there was a grassroots effort by the entire campus to get the charges dropped, and eventually Mizzou did.
That's great.
So the
mob rule, baby.
314 says football and basketball, it's common, but can you imagine an MLB field getting stormed? It's happened.
I can. I was in one.
The 1982 World Series.
Yeah.
They were all on the field.
Mark Lamping used to tell me all the time, I walk out of my office and there I see your face as an usher out on the field.
Dear Uncle Randy, my boss is complaining that I'm not giving my 100%. I don't know how he knows. I have never given my 100%. How should I play this?
Well, you see, let's hope, first of all, that the boss isn't listening, okay? But your boss has to understand. Well, he doesn't have to understand, but you have to understand. You can't give 100%. Because as we know, if you give 100%, then your boss will expect that on a regular basis. So what you have to do is say, I'm doing my best. You a little fib, but tell your boss, hey, I am giving 100%. I don't know what more you want from me. I think that's the approach to take here.
Do you give 100%?
Never.
John is probably listening. Kiowski, he's our boss.
Yeah,
Remember you said hopefully your boss isn't listening.
Yeah, well... and here's what I hope is that my 85% is good enough.
Brooke, do you give 100%?
100% every single day, Dan.
Me too.
John,
Rocc?
you hear that?
You guys are.
Yes.
You guys are gamers.
We're just not very good, I guess, because your 75% just
85%
outshines us every single morning.
Well, I just have a belief that once you give 100%, then you have nothing more to give. And I always want to have that little extra in the holster just in case. Maybe my last day ever here, I'll give 100%. Maybe. We'll see.
That's a long time away, though.
We'll see.
I like to keep people guessing. Am I giving 85%? Is my talent just this mediocre? You'll never know. Dear Uncle Randy, trying to find a place to eat for breakfast this morning, and you had to pick one between Waffle House, Denny's, or IHOP. Where are you going?
Ooh, that's good.
Okay, I'm going to do IHOP. I'm a pancake guy all the way. The chocolate chip pancakes at IHOP are great. The moon's over my hammy. Can't go wrong. Or that's at Denny's. Moon's over my hammy is at Denny's. I definitely have an allegiance to IHOP over Denny's and Waffle House. So I would go International House of Pancakes.
I'm going with IHOP as well. They have a great menu. Pancakes, of course, are the highlight there. But they also have a really good buffalo chicken sandwich. Just going to randomly put that out there.
Good breakfast food, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Isn't that how you start your day?
Give me some chocolate chip pancakes, IHOP. Number one on the list.
How about that?
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're looking, and I'm glad you texted in. Ask Uncle Randy always has an answer for something like that.
I'm always Waffle. I'm always Waffle House.
Do you give 100% on your eating?
Yeah,
You look good, Randy.
No place else gives me smothered and covered hash brown. I'm just saying.
Thank you for ringing in the donuts this morning, by the way.
Thank you,
no
Danny.
problem.
We appreciate it.
Already
I'm trying to ignore
polish
them.
one off. I appreciate that. I needed it. Dear Uncle Randy, a friend of mine is getting married. How can I ask another friend to be my plus one, or is it too weird because she's just a friend and I shouldn't be doing that?
Nope, you want a plus one, and you just say, hey, I'm going to a wedding in a couple of weeks. You want to come along? Sure. Now, and one thing that we have to know that we don't know the answer to is the wedding in town. Makes a difference if the wedding is in town. But if the wedding is in town and you ask a just friend to be your plus one, that's cool.
So if it's out of town, maybe you're rooming together is where you're going with this.
That's where I'm going with this, yeah.
The phrasing of this is interesting because he's saying she's just a friend. So is he worried about that there's an implication that if you take her to the wedding, that you're looking for something more in that relationship?
And how often does it happen that the guy friend zones the girl? That never happens. So I don't think you have anything to worry about. If you consider her a friend,
Yeah.
if you two are friend zoning it, cool. If you're looking at it that way from the male perspective, you're cool.
And it can be fun.
It's all good. Yeah.
314 says, how often does Randy win the fight if he gave 100%?
Oh, jeez.
See, they're catching on this one, Randy. I think they think you give 100% all the time, and I'm with them.
So Randy's lost, I want to say it's probably 6 fights this year. And we're 2 months in, so that's about 40 shows. So looking at like 34-6 over the last 2 months.
Pretty good.
Roughly.
Pretty good, Randall.
Sounds like 100%.
Well,
The effort is there.
I don't like losing.
Okay.
He forces me to put 100% effort in, that's for damn sure. Hey, Uncle Randy, coming from a Dallas fan, do you think it's possible for Dallas to win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott as the quarterback?
I do, but I don't think it's possible for Dallas to win the Super Bowl with Jerry Jones as their owner. So I think you got a problem there until he leaves this earth. And you're still going to have the AI, are we not, Brooke?
Oh, the AI Jerry Jones will always be here.
Yeah. So I think that's the problem. I do think that Dak Prescott is capable of being a Super Bowl winning quarterback. If Trent Dilfer is capable of being a Super Bowl winning quarterback, if Brad Johnson is capable of being on a Super Bowl champion, then Dak Prescott is too. And he's got all the talent around him now. I don't know what they're going to do at running back, but they'll be fine. But if you have CeeDee Lamb as your number one guy, they have had a talented offensive line for a long time. Dak Prescott, I mean, the reason that they didn't lose in 2022, that they did lose to San Francisco, is because Pollard got hurt, and that screwed up their game plan. And then this year, he had nothing to do with the fact that Green Bay lit him up. Well, wasn't it 27-0 Green Bay, like in a blink? So that had nothing to do with Dak. It had, I think, more to do with their approach defensively. So I'm not going to blame Dak Prescott for them allowing 48 points.
I'm just imagining AI Jerry Jones being carted out for his usual press conference where he talks about how he thought that they had a chance for the playoffs. We'll see that forever and ever.
Yeah, this one hurts. This one hurts me to my core. That's fine.
Dear Uncle Randy, I got engaged a few months ago, and I'm going over the wedding budget, and I could buy 2 of my cars with this thing. Should we just elope?
Well, Uncle Randy doesn't have the full knowledge of what's going on here. If your bride is amenable to just eloping, yes. But my guess is that if you are in the midst of planning and finding out how expensive it is, she's probably not on board. So my suggestion would be just to follow along and let her have what she wants in terms of the wedding, and weddings are expensive these days, and yes, you'd like to have a different car. You'd like to have a down payment on a house. But it's her day. And so
those seemed very logical things to spend money on, Randy, instead of a party for other people.
But at the end of the day, it's her day, and you let her plan out the wedding, and hopefully she's not a person, and you're not a person, that cares more about the wedding than the marriage.
Elope. Just elope.
Yeah,
if you can convince her to elope. But also have a conversation about it. I'm going through the wedding planning process.
Right now,
It is so crazy how just insane the wedding industry has gotten at this point. It feels like there's just one thing after another. Well, okay, this is typically what you do with weddings now. I'm like, how many things are there to include with this? I do understand. And of course, I'm very, very happy to be able to have this wedding. You know, I'm an only child. And so for my parents, I know it's very important. For David's parents, it's important as well. But every once in a while, David and I look at each other and we're like, we should have just eloped. we should have just kept it simple. Maybe just have like a few family friends. No, we are way past that point.
A lot of
down payments.
Yeah, too many. We can't get those checks back.
Yeah, we'll do that too.
Yeah. All right, you got one more? Or is that
No, I just think it's funny that about 7 texters all pointed out that 34 and 6 is exactly 85%. So everyone's going, well, I think we figured out Randy's percentage.
There you go.
The fact that it came out to exactly 85% is insane.
Yeah. I should probably try to get it to 90. I don't know.
You're talking about effort level or winning percentage?
Winning percentage.
Oh, okay.
No, effort level is not going to change. It is what it is. I'm too old to change now. We appreciate your text. Thank you very much for your joining us on Ask Uncle Randy. Coming up with the additions of Marp and Craw, do the Cardinals have the best bench in the National League? That's next on 101 ESPN. Hey, if you're in the market to sell your home, you need to get in touch with my friend Gloria Liu with Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Her number is 314-325-6888. Her website is gloriahasthebuyers.com. And if you're thinking about selling your home, you need to realize that a cash offer may be the best solution. However, unlike a local investor or real estate agent that gives you one option, Gloria Liu is going to give you multiple options, multiple cash offers. And if you want to sell your home without having to make costly repairs and deal with strangers in your home, you need to get to know Gloria Liu like I have, because she already has buyers for you, and that makes a difference. Thousands of ready buyers from over 20 years of experience, and that's in an exclusive database that Gloria has, people that are looking to buy in your neighborhood and in your price range. That's how Gloria will get you the most money and create the highest demand, many times with multiple offers, and that means more money in your pocket. Her name is Gloria Liu. Her business is Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, 314-325-6888, on the web at gloriahasthebuyers.com.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Blues last night fall to the Winnipeg Jets 4-2. They'll be back in action facing off against the Oilers tonight. It's a 7:30 p.m. puck drop. You can catch the pregame show right here on 101 ESPN starting at 6:30. Also last night, St. Louis City SC bows out of the CONCACAF Champions Cup as they fall to the Houston Dynamo 1-0 in that game, and that means they lose on a 2-2 aggregate score, with Houston advancing on the away goal tiebreaker. St. Louis City will be back in action this weekend facing off against New York FC. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff. Find new roads and shop 24/7 at londoff.com and londoffautoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
One of the aspects to the 2023 Cardinals was their lack of experience off the bench. It was essentially, aside from Andrew Kisner, a rookie bench. You had Lucan Baker running around. You had Taylor Motter, who had not had a great run. You saw Oscar Mercado for a while. You really didn't have people that had been around the block. And Brooke and Dan, I go back to the 2000 Cardinals, where they had Eduardo Perez, who'd been around, who'd spent a lot of time as a bench player, knew how to become a pinch hitter. Eric Davis, Sean Dunston, Will Clark came over later because McGuire got hurt. And you had people that had gone through the wars of being in September and knowing how to take a professional at-bat. And it's really hard for a rookie that's been playing his entire career to learn how to become a pinch hitter and come in and face a really hard-throwing pitcher, a really good relief pitcher in the eighth inning while cold. That was one of the things that John Mabry did a really good job of here. He learned how to become a pinch hitter and then was really good at allowing young players to blossom as bench players, because it's probably the hardest thing to do is to come off the bench cold in baseball against a relief pitcher who's got it going. And the Cardinals have gone from one extreme to the other with their bench. Last year was essentially a rookie bench. Now you add Carpenter, you add Crawford. You've got some people there that have had a little bit of time on the bench. And if you look around baseball now, one of the problems they have is that the middle class has been squeezed out, and there aren't those veteran bench players that the Cardinals have now. I really like the idea of being able to bring a professional hitter that's played in winning situations off the bench rather than essentially a rookie. And I think the Cardinals made good moves in bringing in, not just from a leadership standpoint, but from a pinch hitting standpoint, and bringing in guys like Carpenter and Crawford. Not that they're going to hit a pinch hit home run every time they're at the plate, but you got a runner at third with less than two out there, people that are going to make an effort to get their bat on the ball.
Here's the thing is that I don't disagree with you. I think the depth is very important for your bench, especially somewhat of a veteran presence. But I also have some concerns, because what about when we talk about all the time about worrying about the Cardinals not fully giving a chance to some of their younger players? And you do have a lot of young players with potential, and you want to see that ceiling if they're able to reach that. And by bringing in Brandon Crawford, which I am all for the signing, I want to make that very, very clear. I think this makes a lot of sense of adding that depth. But then you also have Matt Carpenter here, and it's taking away possibly at bats and learning opportunities for some of these younger players that you have coming in as pinch hitters. Just by the way, Crawford, 49 at bats, 163 batting average, 684 OPS, and you have Matt Carpenter, 147 at bats as a pinch hitter and a 177 average.
Right.
Honestly, there's some times where I would like to see Alec Burleson. I'm sure he's still going to get a chance as a pinch hitter, but don't you have a little bit of a concern of this possibly taking away some of those chances and opportunities for the younger players?
I think it's a legitimate point, legitimate question, and I guess they would respond by saying we could either keep him on the bench and he doesn't play a lot, or we continue to try to make him grow and send him to the minor leagues. I'm sure Alec Burleson would say, I'll take the paycheck of the major leagues and the travel, and I'll be happy to pinch hit. As you mentioned, Randy, it is one of the hardest jobs in sports, and I think it's gotten harder because of the specialization of bullpen guys throwing 98 to 100 with great sliders or sweepers, and they I had to throw it out there for you, Randy. The split finger, it's tough, and I know, Brooke, you gave those numbers, and I just don't put a lot into it, because I don't know who is a great pinch hitter in the game today anymore. Lenny Harris made a career out of it, where he was just a phenomenal pinch hitter coming off the bench. Do I think, though, that these guys will give you quality at-bats coming off the bench? I do. I just don't think they're going to be overmatched in any situation. May not come through, but I don't think they'll be overmatched.
And that's what I'm looking at is the experience of a guy like Gerald Perry or Milt Thompson or Sean Dunston, Eric Davis, Eduardo Perez brought to the table. I've seen it work for really good teams. And, yes, it's a league now where you want to pay guys the minimum. But is it worth it to give a guy like Alec Burleson 150 at-bats, or would he be better off getting more at-bats and hopefully ascending to an everyday role?
What's interesting is that once you have Tommy Edman get healthy, what do you do? It's just assuming that everybody stays healthy, and then you're going to have a decision to make, and Burleson would be that guy with options.
Does it make the Matt Carpenter signing just a little bit more confusing in this situation? Because what is his role going to be now that you have Crawford on your bench as well?
When they signed Carpenter, I said, I hope he doesn't get 100 at-bats. And they either misread or had no idea the severity of Tommy Edman's injury. That's what this all comes back to, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And at that point in time, you were trying to add veteran leadership, and all of a sudden the playing field changed because of this injury. And I really don't have any problem with it. I had no problem with the Brandon Crawford signing. Things have a way of playing itself out over 6 months. So if he comes out there and doesn't produce and looks completely overmatched, then he, along with the team, will have to make a tough decision.
And it's important for those players specifically to lead. The most experience the Cardinals have, whether it's in their coaching staff or on their team, is Matt Carpenter and Brandon Crawford. The manager is inexperienced. The bench coach is inexperienced. Stubby Clapp has been here for a couple of years. But here's my point. I think the players in that clubhouse, especially the young players, are more inclined, and clearly Arenado, are more inclined to listen to a guy that's won a couple of World Series, he's been on 4 All-Star, or he's won 4 Gold Gloves, he's been on 3 All-Star teams. Those kids watched Brandon Crawford playing in the World Series. They're more inclined, I would think, to listen to Brandon Crawford's tips than even their manager's tips.
I do get that. Now you definitely have a lot of veteran voices in your clubhouse and now on your bench, and I can see the value in that, and the depth is always a good thing. I just think about specifically, I keep going back to Alec Burleson, giving him an opportunity here, because as somebody also pointed out on the text line 314, he is 24. He either needs to be at Major League Baseball at bats. He either needs, Major League Baseball at bats, or you need to deal him. So what is the situation, you think, with Alec Burleson?
And number one, you've got a DH that was hurt for a lot of last year in Nolan Gorman. You have Brendan Donovan, who was hurt for a lot of last year. So you have to have bench strength. And I'm specifically talking for a guy that comes off the bench to pinch hit, which you might not need much of. But I've never seen a team that had too many good players. And if I can have Alec Burleson, who hit 330 in the minors, can be a part of my team and can be a good hitter, I'm not going to complain about having too many good guys on my team.
No, I'm not either. It is amazing, to your point, Randy, that some of these guys, when Brandon Crawford and Matt Carpenter were doing their things, these guys are like 9 and 10 years old.
Yeah, right.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. They were 9, 10. I think Burleson was 11 when Crawford was in the World Series of 2010. If I'm those young players, I'm at the hip of these guys. How are you preparing? What are you doing in terms of what you watch throughout the game as a pinch hitter? What are you watching throughout the game? What kind of video are you looking at? Sometimes too much information can paralyze a player at the plate. Tendencies of watching video, all those things need to go into being a good pinch hitter, and I would assume that these guys can help them a ton in that regard.
And I can't sit here and talk once a week about how, man, the professional player that you give $4 or $5 million to has been squeezed out. There's no more middle class. And then when the Cardinals get him, I can't complain about them getting that guy. I want professionals, and that's regardless of what their abilities are on an everyday basis right now. And we know they're both diminished; they aren't what they were. But I know they're professionals, and I like having those guys on my team.
I agree with you. I think that it's important to have the professionals and the veteran leadership. I just think that sometimes it makes the Matt Carpenter signing a little bit more confusing. I agree with you guys. I think that they didn't know the severity of Tommy Edman and when he exactly would be available. So that's a big concern that you have. But I also hate to see young players miss potential opportunities.
I would look at this being a situation, too, where Carpenter's got to show a little bit in spring training. I think he's got to show just a little bit, not a ton, but to show that he's not done. You got to show that you're not done, because if you do, then that's an issue going into opening day.
And Brad Thompson has a great line that he uses all the time, and Alec Burleson is sitting there. Lars Nootbaar is there. Jordan Walker doesn't have a hit yet in spring training. If you don't like it, play better.
It's true. If you don't like things that are going on, play better.
Yeah.
Have they hit a home
They'll find
run
a
yet?
place for you. No, they have not.
No.
Huh.
So, got to get that going, too.
Gotta
Get
work
that
on that
power
exit
game.
velo.
Oh, we're fine. We don't believe what you see in March. Coming up here on 101 ESPN.
You agree with that, though, don't you?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
We've got Take It or Leave It coming your way, and we've got the text line open for you. 314-399-9646. 314-399. Yo-ho! Take It or Leave It coming your way on 101 ESPN. Later today, I'm going to make my way over to Mentality to get my weekly treatment. And at Mentality, they've got it set up for you as a guy beyond the age of 30 years old to be more energetic, to not be as tired, to be able to coach your kids' teams at night, to come home and when you sit on the couch, you don't just crash. It's really hard to have that lack of physical stamina that we had when we were younger. And we think, oh, I'm old, and old means I'm just going to lay around. No, you don't have to be that guy. If you want to play sports, if you use your body for a living, if you swing a hammer, if you're using your physical being to get to work every day and to do your job, Mentality can help you out a lot. And we see thousands of guys all the time at Mentality that are using this FDA-approved supplemental testosterone treatment to be the guy that they want to be. All you need to do is go to lowtusa.com and you can get your energy level back. They're going to work with your insurance company to provide the lowest out-of-pocket expense possible. Mentality can help you have the energy that you think you should have, but you don't. Be the guy that you want to be with Mentality at lowtusa.com.
9646 and give us your take it or leave it.
Brought to you by Gloria Lou Realty. Visit GloriaHasTheBuyers.com and start packing.
That's my final offer. Take it or leave it.
All right, it is time for Tioli. All you need to do is get your text in to the Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646, 314-399.
Yo-ho!
Yo-ho.
Yay!
Yo-ho. You left me on the sidelines going into the break, so now I'm prepared for it.
I just wanted you to do a later yo-ho so that
You
more
got
people
it.
had the opportunity to hear it. Okay, Tom Brady and Giselle are Splitsville. But Tom Brady was still playing, and they were still together in 2021. She has a new boyfriend named Joaquim Valente, and Tom is claiming that she was together with Joaquim in 2021, that she was stepping out on Tom. Take it or leave it, you believe, Tom, that Giselle would do that?
So where did he reveal this at?
Let's see. It was... She wants to have people believe that she's the Daily Mail. He talked to her exclusively. Actually, no, it wasn't him. It was one of his close friends.
What kind of instructor is she?
Joaquim, I think, is a personal trainer.
All right, I'm sorry, he is. Yeah. Okay. I know. No, there's like jiu-jitsu or something like that. Something specific, but they've been together for quite some time. Mm-hmm. And that was not what I wanted to hear on this Wednesday morning. And I didn't want to hear it or read it last night. I was really upset about it, and that's why I think personally I need to leave it.
Another source said they started out as friends. He was a huge comfort for Giselle when she went through her divorce. Their friendship turned romantic after the divorce.
Oh.
I'm going to go with Tom's sources here.
Yeah, I think I might have to leave it too. But here's the thing is... Tom did put out there that he was going to retire and then unretire. Who knows how long that's been going on? I'm sure there was a lot of issues in that marriage.
Maybe she didn't want him to play anymore, and he wouldn't do it.
Well, I think that's what it was. And
she said, I'm going to kick you out.
Yep. And then he could have played last year. He could have played for the Niners last year. And didn't.
You think he comes back one more time?
No, I think he didn't come back because Shanahan called him up and asked him to come.
Yeah.
If he didn't want to play for his childhood team, then I don't think he was going to play anymore.
Yeah. Take it or leave it, guys. There should only be one National Pancake Day.
I'm going to leave that.
Yeah.
Make as many as you want.
Yep, with free pancakes.
It is very confusing because we had somebody text in and brought to our attention that today is National Pancake Day. And so then when you go and Google it on IHOP's website, they're saying that it already happened. Apparently, IHOP has their own version of the National Pancake Day. And then you have your actual version today, which is National Pancake Day.
I have to go with the National Days calendar. I'm going to go with the official. Is the National Days calendar has today?
Yeah.
Then I'm going with the National Days calendar because that's what I go with.
Now I want a pancake.
There's donuts back there, though.
Dan, I am trying to forget that those are right behind me. They're just like looming behind me right now.
I saw Rocc. I had one. Did you have one yet, Randall?
I have not, no.
Okay, dive in.
Loom. Here's the thing. Love IHOP. Those chocolate chip pancakes that are occasionally delivered from across the street at First Watch are the
Pretty
best.
good.
They're spectacular.
Huge.
They're wonderful. Yeah.
All right, take it or leave it. We saw golf played under the lights again recently with The Match. Because of all the defections to LIV, the PGA Tour needs to be a little proactive in getting more people to watch the sport. So, put on a made-for-TV PGA Tour event under the lights where they can play it in prime time.
Love that idea.
I do
Remember
love
when
that
the
idea.
U.S. Open was it Seattle? Joe Buck was doing it on
Yes.
Fox.
It was up at, it's going to escape my mind. But yeah, they were up there and they complained about the course. The players did because it was just ridiculous.
And it wasn't under the lights. It was just West Coast. But I
Right.
love the idea of playing under the lights. I think that would be really cool.
I love West Coast events because they last in the Central Time Zone until about 6 or 7 o'clock at night. It's
Right.
great.
Now,
Yeah.
there's also an advantage to being in the Pacific Time Zone because everything's over by 10.
Exactly.
I'm gonna
So
take
it's
that.
nice.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I love that.
I just like like to see it. I was watching the PGA Tour over the weekend, and I'm a huge, as you guys know, golf fan. And I'm looking at the leaderboard, and I'm going, this is boring. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's great golf if you're watching it, but you don't know who any of these guys are.
That's a problem. And that's one thing that LIV has done. If they wanted to dent the PGA Tour, they've done that. I don't know that they've helped themselves, but they sure have dented the PGA Tour.
Chambers Bay.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Chambers Bay. Because even Jay Delsing was on that telecast.
Right.
And we talk about it a lot, how he said, I love this. He said Bryson DeChambeau went up to Jay Delsing and said, Mr. Delsing, if you have any, he was with his group, if you have any questions about what I'm doing today, feel free to come up and ask me or my caddy.
That's awesome.
Wow.
I love it. So now I'm a Bryson DeChambeau fan. There you go.
That's nice. Good.
Yeah.
All right, Matthew, what do you got on the old text line there?
Take it or leave it, waffles are better than pancakes.
It's totally a coin flip. Depends on the day for me.
What about chocolate, though? Chocolate chip pancakes? You cannot bypass those, bro.
You can do chocolate chip waffles.
I make chocolate chip waffles.
I don't care. Pancakes are better.
Yeah, it depends on my day for me. Now, I don't know if you were here, but the day that, and here we are closing in on 4 years, but the day the world shut down in 2020, I was instructed to go pick up stuff for the long term. It was going to be the apocalypse. And one of the things that I picked up, in addition to my ribeyes and my Propel, I did pick up a 10-pound bag of Krusteaz waffle and pancake mix. And literally for more than a year had waffles and pancakes, and it was great. So Krusteaz mix at Costco is really good.
How did you guys do your jobs? Were you at home? Is that how they did it?
I never had a day at home.
Okay, so you were here and then properly separated, that kind of thing?
Yep.
How about for you guys, Brooke, on TV?
On TV, we did take all of our equipment home. We just did sportscast TV from home.
Wow.
So everybody got to see our living rooms. It was great. I actually kind of enjoyed seeing everybody's living rooms. I wonder if other people did around that time, because I'm very nosy and I like to see what you have going on in the background. So I was very careful of what I had behind me.
I'm so with you. When I watch, like, when ESPN goes to Adam Schefter or somebody that's an insider, I find myself not paying attention to what they're saying, but looking at their bookshelf.
Right? Yeah.
That's what I do all the time.
Yeah. And there's a website, or it was a Twitter page that talked about the background that people had, or the rooms that they were in, their Zoom rooms.
Take it or leave it. Advancing in a tournament because of away goals is one of the reasons that most Americans do not enjoy soccer. Play a third game like a normal sport.
I'm going to leave that because I didn't even know that existed until this thing started.
You didn't?
No.
I knew it, and I don't like it.
I don't either. No.
I feel it the same way, Dan.
Yeah.
Hey, let's play a best of three. Come
Best
on.
of 3, best of 5, best of 7. That's what I like.
Yeah.
You get some nasty rivalries. You get guys being a little open with their injury time. You get guys that are trying to hurt each other. Count me in.
SC had 2 guys with torn ACLs on the same play last night, and then they both got up and were back in the game like 4 minutes later.
Terrible, Randy. Yeah. What else you got, Rock?
Take it or leave it. At least 4 current Blues will be gone by the deadline.
Leave it.
4.
Leave
By
it.
the deadline? Yeah, I'm going to have to leave that.
Who would want 4 of them?
Yeah, really.
I mean, I don't mean that disrespectfully, but
It's very fair, yes. Because who would the 4 be, honestly, if we were thinking about it?
You'd want Thomas, you'd want Buchnevich, you'd want Kyrou, maybe.
I would
Bennington,
say
maybe.
if they get overwhelmed for Buchnevich. But see, now with Falk back, maybe you move Scandella. I think Scandella
That's the
could
one
be
that comes
a
to
last
mind.
pairing guy for a playoff team. He's a pretty nice player.
Yeah.
But no, there just aren't enough. They need bodies here. That's one thing we tend to forget is they need bodies to actually play the games too.
Yeah.
So you can't get rid of 4 guys.
Can you even move Kapanen at this point?
No.
I don't think so. Not the way that he's played here in the last 2 games.
No. He's had enough chances. Toronto and Pittsburgh, and now here. He's probably ready to be playing EA Sports NHL 2K next year. All due respect.
I don't know because you say all due respect at the end there that helps.
It softens it. It just softens the blow.
Thank you, Matthew.
You're welcome.
Coming up on 101 ESPN, why is leadership missing in sports? That's coming your way on 101 ESPN.
Hey, it's Danny Mac on this Hump Day Wednesday for Stewart's American Mortgage. You know Stewie from Stewart's American Mortgage, home of the bagel loan. Stewie, good morning. You know what? It's kind of a time where you get sick this time of year, but when you're sick, you need a little medicine, don't you?
And Danny, this is a great story. A year ago, an ESPN listener came into our office, 620 credit score, a lot of credit card debt, was struggling, quality of life was low. We went ahead and consolidated them, refinanced them, combined all their debt, saved them about $2,000 a month on their payments. They were thrilled. But that's not the end of the story. This past week, we closed them, reduced their payment even $400 more, went from an FHA loan to a conventional loan, and guess what? The credit score today, 756. So sometimes you got to do things in 2 steps. Start off now, but you can make a difference in your life if you take action. It may take a little time, but you can get it done.
All right. You can call Stewie on his personal cell phone. Here's the number, 314-324-4440. He's helping out our ESPN listeners, 314-324-4440. Or, you know what to do, Google the bagel loan.
NMLS number 226715.
On the day's top stories, it's the Opening Drive's Fresh Take.
In St. Louis, time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Brooke, Dan, and Randy. And Dan has teenagers, so Dan, you have an interesting look into the minds of young people. We were talking about this yesterday in the office about how last year the young players on the Blues didn't want to really follow one of the great leaders in the game right now in Ryan O'Reilly. And it seems to me, and I started covering sports and being around athletes in the early 80s, and players followed leaders. And there were some players that were naturally followers, and some players, Tommy Hurd, Keith Hernandez, that were naturally leaders. And I'm wondering now why there seem to be so many more followers and so fewer leaders.
Well, I got a lot of thoughts on this. Okay, first of all, I think it's become a situation where in pro sports, how do you get paid? If you're a leader,
process,
I mean, if you're a leader,
stats.
Exactly, you get the stats. So leadership sometimes in baseball is done getting a bunt down, hitting behind the runner, knowing where to throw the cut, fundamentals. And a lot of these kids don't know that. And in terms of like my kids, one of the first things that they do, they go on Instagram to look at sports. And what do you see? Individuals. individual accomplishments, reels of individuals. It's a society of, I got to get mine. And it's not great. It's ESPN all day and the highlight shows, and then on Instagram or however you consume some of your sports highlights, it's individualized. And I think that, in this generation of these kids coming up, that's what you see. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does make a lot of sense. And I think that it's very fair because we keep seeing this being talked about over and over again. You even have Miles Michaelis just a few weeks ago when he was on Foul Territory, I think a week ago, where he talked about the connectivity issues sometimes with the older players and the younger players, where they're having a hard time doing that because Miles, he'll go out, or he would go out and go golfing with Adam Wainwright, and now he wants to do the same with some of the younger players, and they would rather play video games. It reminds me of Patrick Maroon said the same thing about how there's a big difference in the locker rooms now where you have these older players. And when I say older, they're really not that much older, but just a different type of generation and things that they maybe like to do. And they were around other veteran players prior. And he mentioned that as well, is that it's hard to connect with those younger players because they just want to play video games. I'm sure not all of them are like that, but you're seeing more of that distance between the two.
I think another thing that's happened, and believe me, this is a good thing, but it's not good for sports, is the anti-bullying approach and education in schools, which is great. I'm glad that schools are doing it. It's important. But I think when we get into a sports locker room, a professional sports locker room, sometimes leadership is misconstrued as bullying. And we talked the other day about Bolduc coming out and taking his first lap. Zdeno Chara stopped that with the Bruins when he was their captain. They don't do that anymore. They want to accept every rookie as part of the team now. So the rookie doesn't go out and skate his own lap anymore. They say, okay, we want you to be part of the team. We don't want you to be thought of it. We don't want you thinking that you're out there on your own, because that applies a lot of pressure. A couple of years ago, there was a big kerfuffle about Bud Norris and Jordan Hicks. And Bud Norris was... maybe he didn't approach it in the right way, but he was trying to teach Jordan Hicks about being a major leaguer. Now, did he do it in the right way? No, but it was perceived as bullying on the part of Bud Norris, when I think if Bud Norris had done the same thing 15 years earlier, he was being a leader. He was trying to help that guy learn how to go to deal with the ropes of the major leagues.
I think about how far it's gone and changed with baseball, where every time that they indoctrinate the rookies to the team, it's done in a very lighthearted way. It did not used to be that way. Maybe guys show up in Disney costumes or dresses or whatever they're going to do, whatever they have to wear that's out of their comfort zone, and they do it as a team, and that's kind of their way to say, okay, you have X amount of service time where you're a rookie, and now you've got to do this, and now you're part of the quote unquote the club. And it's just an easy way to do that. And to your point, Randy, it used to be a lot different than what they're doing now.
And they don't do that anymore, do they? They don't have.
I think they still do.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think they still do.
They do, and it just seems like you're creating more divide, because to your point too, I'm sure when Bud Norris, when he was a rookie, he probably went through way more when it came to, I wouldn't even say bullying, but maybe some of the pressures that are surrounding it, kind of a way to bring you into the league, essentially. And I think that there's good and bad that comes with it, because of course you never want to advocate for bullying and harassment, because that's where it could be a very thin line there. But at the same time, I think that sometimes some of these younger players maybe do not understand that they're trying to push you to your full potential and maybe get to see some of your own mistakes and help you improve. It's not coming maybe from a place of malice sometimes, but more to help you grow into the player that you're supposed to be.
And my impression was that it was more a rite of passage to become a member of the group. Used to be that the rookie relief pitcher would have to wear a pink backpack with the snacks for the bullpen guys.
Every day.
Out to the bullpen. They don't do that anymore. It used to be that rookies in the NFL had to carry the shoulder pads of veterans during training camp into the locker room. They don't do that anymore. And it was just things that, okay, once you did it, then you got accepted and you're part of the group. Now, I don't know if this has anything to do with performance or not. I really don't. But it just doesn't seem like we're building teams like we used to. The cohesiveness, the camaraderie that we used to have.
I would say one guy that's kind of bucked that trend is Brendan Donovan. And he has gone out and tried to reach out to players and understand that now he's got a couple of years under his belt. And it's not only about trying to put up numbers individually, but trying to have the team win. And I just wonder how important is it for guys to win?
Yes.
You know, that has changed a lot because I think the money has changed so much to where winning was going to keep you together and potentially get you some money, where now the individual statistics that you get, that's how you get paid. And so it's a different era in sports.
It is. It seems like that mentality has been lost of the team mentality and not the I mentality. And you've seen specifically with baseball, I think that arbitration has really changed some of the players' approach and thought process in that, because then they go into arbitration and they see, oh, this really is just about my individual statistics. We heard what Josh Hader said not too long ago. And then they take that into the game and that mentality of, well, if I want to get paid and I want to get the money that I think I deserve, then I do have to only worry about myself. And it is a part of the business, but that is hard to kind of deal with. And then you see also on the hockey side of things, just bringing it back to the Blues, it seems like we keep talking about connectivity issues with this Blues group over and over again. Dan, you pointed this out earlier. Robert Thomas's statement, it did take him a few days to talk about it, the benching that happened in the Detroit game. But he said, as a leader, it's on me before anyone else. Now you compare that to Jordan Kyrou's statement, where you didn't hear him say, I, me. It's we as a team didn't play well. There's a big difference in statements there.
Right. And those are your physically best players, right? I think that those guys need to lead this way. This was a great quote from Patrick Mahomes before the Super Bowl. He said, I loved winning those 2 Super Bowls, but the Super Bowl that sticks with me is the one I lost, because he hates losing so much. And the common thread between those great Cardinal teams under Tony La Russa, because it came from the top, hated losing. The greatest show on turf, they were talented, but you know what? They hated losing. Every single one of those guys hated losing. And I think that's one thing we've lost with the individualism that you're talking about and all the individual drills that kids start when they're 5 years old in the process. There's nothing tied to a W or an L. And nothing, but very little tied to a W or an L. And I think that's one of the issues that we have is those people that hate losing, like Mahomes, are able to lead and get their teams to succeed. But we just don't have enough people like that.
I would say this, and I don't know Patrick Mahomes, I don't know Robert Thomas that well, but both those guys have contracts. And it makes it a little bit easier to say it's about me, it's about me, it's about me, because there's an expectation that when you get paid, it is about you to lead and to win. I just think money changes everything in sports today. And I know a lot of people are texting in and saying kids are coddled these days. While I think they're coddled in certain things, I think it's harder to be a kid now than it ever has been because of phones and social media. It is not easy to be a youngster growing up in these days and times. It's just not.
It does. It makes you hyper self-focused in a lot of negative ways. There's good and bad that comes with that, but social media has really just changed things so much for these younger players. Now, a player who doesn't have the big contract yet, and when we're talking about the Blues and with Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou, is Jake Neighbors. I think that there's a reason why he stands out at such a young age is because he is willing to really put in that hard work and effort. It feels like every single game.
And it seems like he's a guy that people will follow. To be a leader, you have to have people follow you. And I think Neighbors is that sort of guy that galvanizes a team. And I think people will fall behind him and allow him to be a leader ultimately.
I think leadership starts with a resume, too. You know, if you've been around for a while and you're Brandon Crawford, you're Matt Carpenter, you're Goldie, you're Arenado, you're Contreras, you're Miles Michaelis, you're Lance Lynn, you're Kyle Gibson. Just look at the back of the trading card, and there's a resume there. And to me, it's incumbent on the player, the young player, to go to the older player and say, I need to be better. And I guarantee almost 99% of these players, the veterans, would say, thank you for coming up to me. Let me tell you what I see. It's incumbent, though, on the young player to go to. It's not the responsibility of the older player to go to the young player. The young player needs to go to the older player and ask, how did you do this? What do I need to do? How do I become a better player? What do you see that I'm doing right? What do you see that I'm doing wrong? And I wish younger players would do that. And part of that is just feeling comfortable enough in their own skin to do it, or the skin of the other guy that they go up to. They might be intimidated. I mean,
I'm thinking about
Bob Gibson.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about Juan Yepes with Albert.
There you go. Yeah. Perfect example.
Yeah.
I always think, too, of one of the great scenes a couple years ago was Genesis Cabrera slamming the ball off the mound when he was going to get taken out of a game. And that usually is a situation because you don't want to show up the player. He did show up the manager, but the manager takes the high road and says, we're going to talk about this in the clubhouse away from cameras. You're going to come in my office and you're about to get an earful. And then you saw probably 5 minutes later, Cabrera sitting at the end of the bench because a pitcher doesn't leave the game. He's going to sit there and watch. And Albert going down and sitting next to him. And I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that conversation. Wasn't screaming, but it was about, let me tell you something, man. You don't ever do that. You don't ever do it again. And here is why.
Right.
Yes.
That's today's Fresh Take on 101 ESPN. Coming up now that transaction season is essentially over. How does the NL Central stack up? That's coming your way on 101 ESPN.
It's time for a DraftKings at Casino Queen Redbird report on 101 ESPN.
Here for your Redbird report. The Cardinals' $75 million man, Sonny Gray, making his spring training debut yesterday against the Red Sox. 2 was the number of the day for Sonny. He pitched 2 scoreless, allowing 2 hits. He walked 2 batters, and he got 2 strikeouts in the 3-3 draw with the Red Sox. Cardinals manager Oli Marmol also confirming yesterday that Sonny Gray will be their opening day starter March 28th against the Dodgers. A fun tidbit for you. Since 1910, this is only the 3rd time a first-year Cardinal has been announced as the opening day starter. Your Redbirds will be back in action facing the Mets today at 12:10 with Miles Michaelis on the mound.
The Redbird report is presented by DraftKings at Casino Queen. Play, stay, dine at DraftKings at Casino Queen.
Arch Madness is the place to be March 7th through 10th at Enterprise Center. It's the 30th consecutive year of the State Farm Missouri Valley Conference men's basketball tournament being at Enterprise Center. And it's always wild, and you never know what's going to happen, and you never know who's going to put on the slipper and go to the dance as Cinderella. And there's so many different things that could happen this year with Arch Madness. It really has been a crazy season. Indiana State and Drake vying for the top spot as we head down the stretch. Bradley is there. SIU is going to have an opportunity to win the tournament. Northern Iowa, and keep an eye on Belmont, 17-12 overall. They're only 10-8 in the conference, but if they get hot, they're capable of beating anybody. And the cool thing about the Valley is that they're St. Louis-based, and they've got so many St. Louis-based players like Donovan Clay from Alton, who's at Missouri State, Chaminade's Luke Kasubke of Illinois State. You've got Vashon's Kennard Davis Jr. at SIU, and you have Cardinal Ritter's Nick Ellington playing at Murray State. It's a great time. There's a great deal right now for your family, 4 single session tickets, 4 large sodas, 4 regular popcorns, all for $100. Get your tickets now and check out Arch Madness at archmadness.com. after the Cubs re-signed Cody Bellinger, the rosters for the National League Central teams are pretty well set. And I think right now, if you look, it's not unfair to think of the Cardinals as a team that can win the Central. That being said, I would think in Cincinnati, they're looking at the Reds as a team that can win the Central. I think in Chicago now, they're probably looking at the Cubs that could, as a team that can win the Central. Don't know about the Pirates or the Brewers, but I would think right now, if it's a 3-team race headed into September between the Cards, the Reds, and the Cubs, I will not be at all surprised.
No, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. And Dan, I know you feel this way too. I do think that the Cardinals, it's not out of the realm of possibilities from them to go from worst to first in the NL Central. But I do think that there's a dark horse candidate in the Reds because of what they potentially have there. And I know, look, their starting pitching was not great last year, but you were able to add Frankie Montas. And there's other intriguing guys, including some young guys that they have in their starting rotation.
Nick Lodolo, Hunter Green, Graham Ashcraft, Nick Martinez was another signing that they had. I kind of think that they've flown under the radar. And the other thing that they've done, they've stockpiled a ton of elite prospects. And so some of those guys may emerge as this season goes on. They also signed corner infielder Jamar Candelario. He got a 3-year deal. They invested $42 million in that free agent starting pitching pool of Frankie Montas and Nick Martinez. I think they're kind of flying under the radar. Now, the Cardinals, their payroll, I think, is top 12 right now in baseball, $211 million, $225 for the Cubs. When you look at the Pirates, they only spent $29.2 million in free agency. They did get, I think the back end of their bullpen is actually pretty good when you look at Aroldis Chapman and the young man that they just signed to a 5-year extension who's nasty, Bedard. So I like what some of the moves have been done by these teams. I would say that Pittsburgh is in the bottom, then Milwaukee, and then, as you said, Randy, probably a 3-team race at the top. But I do not want to overlook the Cincinnati Reds.
No, and last year, Graham Ashcraft kind of arrived on the scene after the All-Star break. He had a 2.81 ERA after the break. He seemed to figure things out. Hunter Green needs to figure things out. He's got the stuff to be great, and he should be an ace for them. But he got hurt last year, too. He's kind of on that, unfortunately for him, he didn't even have the half of a year like Flaherty had.
Remember they babied him a lot, too, that first year? Yeah, I'm with you.
And Montas had the shoulder injury, and he apparently was damaged goods when he arrived on the Yankees scene. But I'm with you, too. I really like what they have, and I wonder if they will have a different vibe because Joey Votto is gone.
I think sometimes an organization can spend so much time looking at a veteran, and it overshadows what's happening with the club. I think you make the case last year with Wainwright a little bit, trying to get him to 200. At times, it was uneasy seeing him gut through those starts and trying to get there. Now they're off the books with the Votto deal, which was $200+ million. He's still looking for a job. But I like the Cardinals. You think about the different vibe that they have. They've overturned nearly 50% of their roster. They've overhauled their bullpen, which they had to do. They overhauled the rotation. I think it could be a good year for the Cardinals. Now, a lot of things need to happen. Guys need to stay healthy, which every team is saying. But I do like the overhaul of the roster that the Cardinals have done.
So I just got a text from the 870 that says, come on, Brooke, this division is the worst in baseball. Worst to first, won't take that much in this division. Do you guys have any frustrations with this division?
I always ask people, where are you going to put the Cardinals? You're going to put them in the East or the West? We're in Mid-America. We're in the central part of the country. I mean, what do you want them to do?
And the other thing is, it is a lesser division. So
yeah, it is.
It is what it is.
You aren't allowed. You aren't allowed to pick your division. It'd be nice to play the best competition, but that's just not the way it works.
I think their frustrations probably stem from just based off of social media and fans reacting to it, that they feel like that is the Cardinals' plan, is just to win the division every single year and not get past that point, that they're just building to win the division.
I have yet to see a World Series champion that didn't make the playoffs.
That's 100% right in that statement. I think what was really a real thing last year were these teams playing outside their division and having to play every team in the league. That was a real thing for the Central Division. That was I talked to Ali about that. He said, you see it on paper, you see some of these other teams, and it's a tough road to hoe, so to speak, when you've got to play the Yankees every year. You got to play Boston every year. You're going to go play the Dodgers. You're going to go play, some of the top teams that you look at in baseball. And those 3-4 game series become very tough instead of trying to beat up on 18 games in the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Right. And it is what it is. And by the way, let me mention that the Dodgers have had the highest payroll in baseball for pretty much a decade now, and they only won the COVID World Series. The Phillies, with all of their expenditures, they haven't won a World Series with all of their expenditures. The Yankees haven't been to a World Series since 2009, despite being in the top 3 in payroll every single year. Just because you have a huge payroll with a lot of good players doesn't mean you're going to go to the World Series. Nobody expected Arizona to go to the World Series last year, yet they did. So you can say, well, they just want to make the playoffs. Thing is, if you make the playoffs, and I've got the stat for you. I can tell you again right now, if you haven't heard it, the last 4 National League World Series, 21, 22, 23. Last 3 National League World Series participants were the lowest seeded playoff teams when they came in. Atlanta, Philadelphia, Arizona were the lowest seeds in the National League playoffs. By the way, if I'm going to pick a favorite here, and I'm concerned about the Cardinals' age, I worry about them, especially with the summer heat in St. Louis, being able to sustain. Craig Counsell is a guy that, as a manager, is able to maximize a group of players, and they have a pretty decent group of players. I'd be shocked if the Cubs didn't have the best defense in the National League.
I love Craig Counsell, too. I think now that you signed Bellinger, giving them a little left-handed presence in their lineup, which was missing, that's going to give him more options as they move forward. To your point, Randy, I looked this up a few weeks ago. So the best team over 162 games, so the best record, has won just 14 times in 54 seasons since divisional play began.
Wow.
That's an incredible stat to me. So to your point, it's nice to get in. It's nice to pay all these players and say that you are on paper the team that wins, but that is baseball in a nutshell. It's not guaranteed.
It's not the best team. It's the team that's playing the best.
And I wonder if Major League Baseball needs to change how they do this, where if you win your division, like the Atlanta Braves had all that time between winning the division and then waiting for the next opponent. I think they need to look at something like that so you stay in a flow in how you got there at the end of the year, and then all of a sudden you're playing inter-squad games for a couple of days and the intensity drops. I think it's something they need to do.
Without fail, that happens. It's happened since we started the playoff scenario where you could take time off, or like when we talked about the 06 Tigers. They were a better team than the Cardinals, but they had all that time off after sweeping the ALCS, and that hurt them, no doubt about it.
I wonder what managers would say, guys, if they'd rather just go right into the postseason. Now, if you win your division, you should be able to line up your postseason rotation because you could skip guys and do all that kind of stuff. Or do they rather say, no, it's good. We need the time off, rest some bodies, obviously line up our rotation. I wonder which one they'd pick.
I want to, and I know managers would pick rest. I want to have a team that's played desperate for a long time.
Yes.
Wild cards.
Yep.
That's why they're dangerous.
Exactly. Coming up here on 101 ESPN, we've got The Fight. You can text in your name and the word fight to 314-399-9646, 314-399-YO-HO. And maybe Matthew will pick you to fight me next on 101 ESPN.
Tired of the same old pick'em games? Well, the new one here in Missouri is Underdog Fantasy's Pick'em Champions, and it's my favorite way to play. You just pick 2 to 5 players from at least 2 different teams, select higher or lower on the player stats, and once your entry is ready, you're going to be pick your entry fee, and you're going to be entered in alongside other underdogs. I love playing underdog every day. In fact, let's build an entry for today. I love the Blues game tonight. McDavid higher than 3.5 shots. Pavel Buchnevich higher than 2.5 shots. And then we're going to take the Scorcher. We're going to put a little risk on it, and we're going to go with Neighbors higher than 0.5 goals. That last one is a big Scorcher, so usually 3 entries is going to get you 6x on your entry. This one, though, is going to get you almost 17x on your original entry. And here's the thing, again, you might want to wait a little bit later in the day to put your entry in for when Underdog Fantasy puts out their incredible discounts on their X account. For instance, yesterday, 0.5 points, rebounds, or assists for Draymond Green across the entire game. That's one you want to add into your entry. It's almost free money. Underdog Easy, super easy to play and even easier to get started. You just go to their easy-to-use mobile app or to UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with promo code ROCK, and Underdog will match your first deposit up to $100. Plus, they'll give you a mystery special pick to use on your first pickup entry. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code ROCC to get your first deposit of $10 or more up to $100 matched, plus your special pick. Must be 18 plus in President's Day where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Conserve your play. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.ncbgambling.org. This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Blues last night getting beat up by the Winnipeg Jets early for a 4-2 loss. They'll be back in action facing off against the Edmonton Oilers later tonight. It's a 7:30 puck drop. You can catch the pregame show right here on your home for the St. Louis Blues 101 ESPN. Starting at 6:30. Also last night, St. Louis City SC gets bounced out of the CONCACAF Champions Cup with a 1-0 loss to the Houston Dynamo in the first round. They fall to a 2-2 aggregate, losing on away goal differential. That is your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Morning Drive, please welcome Randy Carricker.
Welcome back to the opening drive. Brooke, Randy, and Dan here in Rockio, and it is time for the fight. And our fighter today is Ryan. Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful today. How about yourself?
We're doing great. Is this your first time facing Randy in the fight?
This is the first time. A little nervous, but spent last night watching my son's Priory Ravens win in the basketball playoffs, so I'm feeling good today.
There you go.
Now, Ryan, that was the first time in the sectional in 55 years for Bobby Mack. Is that right?
It was. This was, and this is my understanding, it's the furthest we've ever made it. So,
that's what I thought, too. Congratulations to Priory.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can keep the good times rolling for you. All right, you ready for question number 1, Ryan?
Yep.
Which Cardinal leads the franchise in walk-off home runs with 12? Is it Joe Medwick, Albert Pujols, or Stan Musial?
I'm going to go with Albert.
Okay, question 2. The John Elway of the NHL, Eric Lindros, refused to play for the team that held the first overall pick, eventually forcing a trade to the Flyers. Which team did he refuse to sign with? Was it the San Jose Sharks, the Minnesota North Stars, or the Quebec Nordiques?
I knew he went to Philly. I'm pretty certain it was the Nordiques.
Final answer?
Final answer, yeah.
Question 3, please.
All right. Speaking of draft day trades for oversized stars, which team originally drafted Luka Doncic and before trading his rights to the Mavericks? Is it the Hawks, the Celtics, or the 76ers?
Oof. This one's just going to have to be a guess. I'm going to go with the Hawks.
Well, you watching a basketball game, I think you're going to like that answer from last night and today. Which blue blood has the most losses in the Final Four, losing a combined 15 semifinal and championship games? Was it Michigan State, UNC, or Kentucky?
Sorry, can you say the question again?
Sure. Which team has the most losses in the Final Four, losing a combined 15 semifinal and championship games? Was it Michigan State, UNC, or Kentucky?
I'm going to say Michigan State.
Okay. All right, we're going to go bring in Randy here for his portion of the fight. When does Priory play again, by the way, and who do they play?
They play Saturday against Montgomery County. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be at home. We're going to have to travel there, but we're kind of road warriors this year, so we only had one win at home.
Well, that happens. So congratulations to Bobby McCormick. He's been around a long time. He had Larry Hughes at CBC, won a state title back in 1996, I believe. So Bobby Mack doing things at Priory. We have our challenger, Ryan, his son, plays for Priory, and they advanced to the sectional.
Congratulations, Ryan, to your son. That's great. And thank you very much for playing today. Good to have you with us, and thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
All right, question number 1, Randy. Which Cardinal leads the franchise in walk-off home runs with 12?
I'm going to go, because of those 2 that he had against the Cubs on back-to-back days, I'm going to go with Albert Pujols. That was a memorable weekend. It's
pretty good.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. All right, the John Elway of the NHL, Eric Lindros, refused to play for a team that held the first overall pick, eventually forcing a trade to the Flyers. Which team did he refuse to sign with?
I believe he may have been traded by the Quebec Nordiques to the Philadelphia Flyers. And by the way, the Colorado Avalanche, who the Quebec Nordiques became, got Peter Forsberg out of that deal.
And then they had Joe Sakic, and then their first year, I think, speaking of 1996, was the Avalanche in 96, and they won the Cup.
Won the Cup, yeah.
Question number 3. Speaking of draft day trades for oversized stars, which team originally drafted Luka Doncic before trading his rights to the Mavericks?
I think Luka might have been drafted by the Atlanta Hawks, formerly the St. Louis Hawks, and I think he might have been traded for Trae Young, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to go with that.
All right, question 4, Randall, you ready?
Ready.
Which blue blood has the most losses in the Final Four, losing a combined 15 semifinal and championship games?
Wow, that's a lot. Can I do the lifeline?
Sure. Michigan State, UNC, Kentucky.
I was going to go with Kentucky because of recency bias, because Calipari has struggled so much. Dean Smith, though, took forever to get a championship at Carolina. So I am going to go against my initial thought, and I'm going to go with the Tar Heels.
Okay. Matthew, it's your time to talk.
This was a close one. I honestly thought we were going to burn another tiebreaker. And I had a good one, so hopefully we get it tomorrow. But we have an outright winner today in the fight. Does Ryan come in here on a hump day and bump off Randy? Or does Carricker keep on rolling through with another victory? Ring that bell.
The winner and still champion of the fight, Randy Carricker. The fight is driven by CarShield. Plans to fit any budget. Visit carshield.com today.
Just win, baby.
It was a little loud in Danny's ears a little bit, but I'm sorry, Ryan. Randy Carricker just barely beat you 3-2 in that fight.
Too much. It was too much, Randy.
It wasn't on at first. It wasn't on.
We got the back end of it. We got the idea.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry about that, Ryan.
No problem. Thanks.
Absolutely. Let's go through the questions and answers. Which Cardinal leads the franchise in walk-off home runs with 12? Albert Pujols has 12 for his career, but not all of them came in a Cardinals uniform. Stan Musial, though, 12 for 12 in his career.
Hold on just a second. Were you thinking Gary Bennett? You said he had back-to-back walk-off home runs against the Cubs. Were you thinking Gary Bennett?
No, Albert had back-to-back in 2010. Had back-to-back walk-off, a Saturday and a Sunday walk-off home runs against the Cubs.
I don't remember that.
Yeah,
how was it when the state? Oh no, that's not right.
June of 2010, I think.
Okay.
The John Elway of the NHL, Eric Lindros, refused to play for the team that held the first overall pick, and that was, in fact, the Quebec Nordiques. Speaking of draft day trades, it was, in fact, the Atlanta Hawks who held the rights after selecting Luka Doncic before moving him to the Mavericks for Trae Young. That's working out for them. And which blue blood has the most losses in the Final Four, losing a combined 15 semifinal and championship games? UNC has 21 Final Four appearances and just 6 championships, 15 losses for them. On the other side, by the way, UCLA has been to 18 Final Fours and has won 11 of them, so only 7 losses in a semifinal or a championship game for UCLA. Kentucky, by the way, 17 Final Four appearances, 8 championships, so only 9 times they've had to actually lose in a Final Four for the Kentucky Wildcats. A 3-2 win for Randy Carricker in the fight today. Thank you so much, Ryan, for joining the fight and joining the show.
All right, thanks very much.
Good luck this weekend.
Ryan. Absolutely. Okay, so it was actually 2011, June 4th and 5th of 2011. Cardinals won on a walk-off home run by Pujols on Saturday, June 4th, and then Sunday, June 5th in 2011.
There you go. Yep.
So, and you know what? I think one of those games, the Saturday game, might have been a Big Fox game.
That's probably why I don't remember.
Yeah, there
I
you
was
go.
probably fishing.
Yeah, probably. Coming up here on 101 ESPN, 5 premier NFL running backs were not franchised by their teams. So what are the best fits for these guys? That's next on 101 ESPN. Hey, the warm weather is going to be here before you know it, and that's why you need to get your air conditioner checked by my friends at Hoffman Brothers Heating and Cooling. They are an American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer, and when we needed new air conditioners at our house, and we have a 2-story, we went to Hoffman Brothers. We're members of their home protection plan, and they had told us the year before, hey, your air conditioner is old. This one's probably on its last legs. So make sure that financially you're set up to get new air conditioners next year. So we were prepared for it. They're great about that. At Hoffman Brothers, if you're a member of their home protection plan, they're going to provide you with different filters for each your furnace and your air conditioner every year, and they're going to call you and make sure that you get your air conditioner checked out for the spring and summer, and for the fall and winter that you get your furnace checked out. They're a great St. Louis company. They've been around, and they are a fantastic American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer. It's Hoffman Brothers Heating, Cooling, plus plumbing, electrical, and more. Find them on the web at Hoffman Bros, Hoffmann, hoffmanbros.com.
ESPN.
NFL free agency gets underway in a couple of weeks, and there's going to be more running backs available this year than there ever have been on the free agent market. Earlier this week, when the franchise tag date came and went, Austin Eckler of the Chargers was not tagged. Saquon Barkley of the Giants was not tagged. Derrick Henry of the Titans was not tagged. Josh Jacobs of the Raiders was not tagged. Tony Pollard of the Cowboys was not tagged. All right, so we're going to play the old game of connecting players to teams. And let's start with Austin Eckler, formerly of the Chargers. Where's he going to wind up?
I feel like Austin Eckler, it makes the most sense for him to go to the Raiders. To me, it just makes a lot of sense. Obviously, the Raiders moving on from Josh Jacobs, unless for some reason they do keep him there. Now, this is a question that we will go through during this segment, but is there a player that you think will still return to their team that they were originally with?
Jacobs is the one for me.
Possibly, but at the same time, with Eckler, the price is a little bit lower than Jacobs possibly. So I could see that being a fit there.
I definitely could see him there, and obviously the Raiders will do anything they can to tweak an AFC West rival. But I'm going to go with Eckler to wind up with the Tampa Bay Bucks. They were the worst rushing team in the league last year. As you mentioned, Brooke, he'll probably be a little bit less expensive and seems to fit the profile of what they're looking for. Now, that might change, too, because they lost Dave Canales, their offensive coordinator. But I think Eckler is a good fit in Tampa Bay. Next up, Saquon Barkley.
This is the guy that this is the only interest I have.
Yeah.
Okay. Isn't that terrible?
Yeah, it's not terrible.
It's the greatest free agent running back class in the history of the NFL, and I just want to know where Saquon Barkley goes. That's all I care about. I'm enamored watching him play, loved watching him play with the Giants. I think he's a special talent, and I think he winds up in Dallas. I bet he winds up playing for Jerry.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, because there's an interesting little tidbit that has come out recently. The Saquon Barkley has reportedly had some communication with C.J. Stroud. Supposedly Stroud would be interested in having him come to the Texans. We talked about social media before about how sometimes you do have to pay attention to that. Supposedly Saquon followed some Texans players, including Stroud, on social media here recently. Is that a fit, possibly?
That's a great fit. He's so much better than Devin Singletary. And they've got cap room because they've got the young quarterback. That would be a fantastic fit for Saquon.
Isn't it funny that we follow who they follow on social media, and then that's going to tell you where they wind up?
You kind of have to now. We were talking about earlier about with the younger generation. I sound old. I got to stop saying that because I sound really old when I say that. But the generation that is a little bit younger than what I am, I feel like you do have to pay attention to what they're doing on social media because it gives you clues as to what they are thinking and possibly what they're even going to do.
I'm lost. I wouldn't be able to do anything. I don't follow any players. I don't know who they don't follow or follow. I don't care. They do whatever they want.
I think the team that goes for it, and they're going to lose both Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, the injured running back as a free agent. I think Saquon is the perfect Raven, and I think he winds up with Baltimore.
Ooh, well, because the next person on the list here, I think,
Derrick
is the perfect
Henry.
Raven.
Yes.
To me, it makes so much sense because they're looking for somebody to really balance out their offense, which, of course, you have Lamar Jackson there, but somebody who can really, really upgrade, I believe, that position in their backfield, and Derrick Henry fits that profile for me. Now, he is 30, I believe.
Yes, he is.
So that could be a cause of concern. But to me, makes so much sense to have Derrick Henry with the Ravens.
He reminds me of Leonard Fournette.
Yeah.
At this point in his career.
Yeah.
Still be able to barrel over some guys, get you some yards, tough yards. I love him if he would go to Baltimore.
I think that he goes and becomes a Thunder and Thunder backfield with Najee Harris in Pittsburgh.
Thunder and Thunder backfield.
Not Thunder and Lightning?
No, Thunder and Thunder.
Had a Thunder and Thunder backfield?
What about the old, I guess, the flash and dash with Carolina?
The terrible Rams team, Steven Jackson and Steven Davis.
Steven Davis, there you go.
Thunder and Thunder.
Yeah, Thunder and Thunder. Okay, so I've got Josh Jacobs going back to the Raiders. What about you guys?
I think that makes sense. It could be a possibility. But what about either Green Bay or the Bengals? Now, the Bengals do have $60 million in cap space to work with here. So when we were talking about earlier about the Raiders maybe looking to not exactly pay that price of Jacobs, I think that Eckler, of course, will get a good payday, but not as much as Jacobs. I think that that makes sense for him to possibly go to the Bengals.
I think Jacobs was not utilized properly under McDaniels. And then if you looked at Antonio Pierce in 5 games, and then he had a quad injury, but under Antonio Pierce, they used him a lot differently, a lot more. And he averaged almost 100 yards a game. I think it was 98 yards a game. So I see him going back to the Raiders.
Okay, good fit. I do think, though, that the Cincinnati idea is a good one. Is Mixon a free agent? I didn't even look and see if Joe Mixon is a free agent because he seems to be their alpha back there. But if he's if he's there, I think it'd be hard for Mixon and Jacobs to coexist. And you can always cut a guy.
They could move on from Joe Mixon. And so that is my possibility in thinking with that is that they would be moving on from Joe Mixon.
So, Randall, there's a couple, too. DeAndre Swift that you didn't mention.
And I wonder if he goes back to Philly. I think that's a great fit for him there.
A.J. Dillon. J.K. Dobbins.
Dobbins is going to have a tough time because he's been hurt. Dillon is interesting because the Packers gave the big money to Aaron Jones, and Dillon is another one of those guys. He would be an interesting fit in Baltimore with the way that Todd Monken wants to pound the ball. You know where else he would be an interesting fit, if the price is right, is Tennessee.
There you go.
Well, you're the expert on Tennessee football. Do you like that or not?
It will be fine. I am still kind of having a hard time with Derrick Henry, but things obviously didn't work out there, and they're not going to pay him that amount of money, so it makes sense.
Tony Pollard, I've got going to the Vikings.
Ooh, really?
Alexander Madison was a disappointment for them last year. They had injuries with both guys, and Tony Pollard, again, just seems to be a fit for what Kevin O'Connell wants there.
What do you think about the Chargers?
I think my guess is that Blake Corum somehow finds himself in L.A. with the Chargers. I think that just based on the history of Jim Harbaugh with the 49ers, I think they're going to be young, and draft guys.
Saquon to the Chargers?
Saquon would be, he's only 26.
Exactly.
Saquon would be a really good fit. And does he fit what Jim Harbaugh wants?
Perfect. He's exactly what they want.
Yeah. I was thinking, my thinking with the Chargers that you have their offensive coordinator Moore. He was with the Dallas Cowboys, so you have that familiarity there.
Yeah, good call. No, Moore went to Philly, right? He left the Chargers. I think Greg Roman is the OC with the Chargers.
Yeah.
So, and Greg Roman is pound, ground and pound. And he was the offensive coordinator for the Niners when they were in, or when Harbaugh was there. Kind of the Frank Gore look, right?
I loved Frank Gore.
He's a Hall of Famer, man. Career.
He was amazing.
Yeah. So that's where we've got our running backs tied to again. I've got Eckler in Tampa, Saquon in Baltimore, Henry in Pittsburgh, Jacobs back to the Raiders, and I've got Pollard with the Vikings.
I care about one, Saquon going to Dallas.
Saquon with the Cowboys.
And I can't stand the Dallas Cowboys, but that's where I got him going.
It makes a lot of sense. I do think that I agree with you, Dan, that Saquon is probably about the most interesting one out of this whole bunch.
Yeah.
For me, he is.
Okay, let's just move Derrick Henry back to the Titans.
Why not?
He's a little expensive. That's the thing. And 30 years old. Nothing against him. Enjoyed him with the Titans, of course. Big fan of Derrick Henry. But still, I can just see him with the Ravens. It makes so much sense.
Yeah. He'll fit anywhere because he doesn't need an offensive line.
Just do it on his own.
Yeah. Coming up on
which he did for a lot of years.
Yeah, he sure did. Coming up on 101 ESPN, we've got our rush hour reset following a Blues loss and a loss for St. Louis City SC. That's coming your way on 101 ESPN. Hey guys, Gutter Pros is a great St. Louis company. Eventually, we're all going to need new gutters. And when you get your new gutters, I want you to go to gutterpros.com and set up your free estimate. They'll come out to your house. They know St. Louis. They love St. Louis. They'll know exactly how to get to your street. And they will provide you with a great estimate. You'll get a good price. And they're going to pressure you. They're going to say, okay, this offer is only available today, and then tomorrow it goes up by 50%. No, they're a low-pressure sales group with great products. They do seamless 5-inch residential gutters, and if you need leaf protection, they'll provide that. They'll do soffit and fascia. They'll take care of that as well. And water goes where they tell it to go. That's a really important thing. So your gutters will not only look great, but they'll function like they should. And they don't only do homes. They do commercial. They'll do 6-inch commercial gutters and even seamless 7-inch commercial and industrial gutters. Whatever you need, my friends at Gutter Pros can help you out. Go to gutterpros.com. Take advantage of their A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau. 4.9 out of 5 stars in their reviews. You will love Gutter Pros. Make your appointment now at gutterpros.com.
Drive with a Rush Hour Reset.
It's 9:03 in St. Louis. Your time check is brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. The Blues are at Edmonton tonight. They'll take on the Oilers. Pregame at 6:30, action at 7:30 here on 101 ESPN. Last night, the Blues fell to the Winnipeg Jets by a score of 4-2. 2-0 game in the first period. Blues cut the lead 2-1, but they never really had posed a real threat in this game. Even though they played about as well as they can, they really didn't pose a threat to win the game, and the Jets win it by a score of 4-2 and sweep the season series against your St. Louis Blues.
And it's not on specific players to all, I feel bad sometimes pointing out specific players, but then again, there is some guys in this situation where instead of stepping up, you're seeing them really fall behind. And I'm going to talk about Kasperi Kapanen and Kevin Hayes, and you pointed this out earlier, both of which, Dan, were -3 in like the opening 20 minutes. I think that Kevin Hayes finished -3 in the game. And just to point this out, Hayes entered the game with just 1 goal in his past 27 games. Kapanen has 1 goal in his past 36 games. Now, they aren't the big money guys, but when we're talking about every single player needs to step up and make the most of the opportunity, you're starting to see some of those guys fall behind.
Well, if you're a Blues fan this morning, you're waking up going, okay, where are the Blues in the standings, and what do they do with the trade deadline looming? So, span of 12 days, the Blues went from the potential of being up 6 points on the Predators. There was a Saturday game at Enterprise Center, and it wasn't a good game. They lost that game against Nashville. They're now 6 points back of Nashville. Blues, since that game, are 1-4. Nashville's put together a 6-game winning streak. Now, the Blues do have 2 games in hand. What's interesting, though, and I pointed out looking at the numbers this morning, and I think numbers tell a story, 6 points out of a playoff spot, but yet 4 points away from the 8th worst record in hockey. So it's not going to get any easier. Starting tonight, they've got the Oilers in a back-to-back in Edmonton. Then you have the Wild, the Flyers, the Islanders, and the Devils. Only 1 game at home before the trade deadline. So I wonder, as a Blues fan, you wake up, you're probably saying, that's not going so well. If you're Doug Armstrong, maybe this gives you clarity in the front office and what you want to do at the trade deadline, too.
If I'm Doug Armstrong, I'm listening to all offers right now and taking it very, very seriously because you have to. But we were discussing this earlier, guys, and I think it's a very fair point. Who can you move right now and that would bring in some value? I think Buchnevich is really the only realistic answer that you have. Maybe Marco Scandella, but if you're trying to at least get some value out of this at the trade deadline, who can you move?
You might be able to get a third out of Scandella, right? Maybe a fourth. And fourth round draft choices get traded a lot for some reason in the NHL. But you're going to bring in any players of value for this year, I don't think. So what you're looking for, if the Blues are in the trade market, I believe they'll be selling because think about it from this perspective. They're an underdog tonight. I think they'll be an underdog against, maybe they'll be favored against Minnesota on Saturday. But then you go to Philly, they'll be an underdog. They go to the Islanders, they'll be an underdog. They go to Jersey, they'll be an underdog. They go to the Rangers, they'll be an underdog. They go to Boston, they'll be an underdog. So the likelihood is that when the Blues get to and pass the trading deadline, they'll probably not have a great shot at a playoff.
I thought it was just some names to throw out there. Kasperi Kapanen, Marco Scandella, I think makes a lot of sense, as you said, Randy. Oscar Sundqvist, maybe. Is there value for somebody there that is looking for a little depth? And to your point, Brooke, I don't think anything's off the table with this team. Buchnevich would be the one that comes to mind that teams would want. He's got 6 goals in his last 6 games. But again, the interesting name is Cairo. Is there somebody out there that would want to take on that contract and see if a change of scenery? And he hasn't. Look at the stats. His numbers are okay. It's just, I think, and I mentioned this yesterday, I think he was overshadowed by Tarasenko, O'Reilly, some of the other bigger names that you had. These were issues that you had before at times, too, playing a 200-foot game. So now it's just being magnified a little bit more.
But if you're another team, and we talk about the contract, and everybody's got scouts, they're watching the guy play. But if you just zero in on the 37 goals, 73 points last year, 27 goals, 75 points the year before, I'm sure there's coaches and general managers out there that think, okay, I can get the most out of him. Clearly, he's got talent. 37-goal scorers don't grow on trees, and maybe somebody will gamble on that talent. I don't know.
And that's the question the Blues have, too. You know, you're still very early on in this contract. He's still a young player, and you believed in him because you gave him that contract, and you're saying maybe this is kind of a one-off for him, and there's a coach out there or the current coach that can try to get the most out of him moving forward.
Right. And he does have a lot of skill, and that's the hard part, is that you know that if you do trade him, then he is going to go light the lamp elsewhere. He is going to be probably a 30-goal scorer again, and that's going to be a very painful thing. But you also have to think about what's best for this franchise right now. And with that no trade clause kicking in here soon, do you try to move him before it kicks in?
I would.
I think you got to look at it for sure. Yeah. I mean, you're asking about who's untouchable. In my mind, Robert Thomas is untouchable. That guy is playing at a very high level and not getting enough credit for it, too.
Agreed. The Cardinals will take on the Mets today after tying with Boston yesterday, 3-3. Sonny Gray, 2 innings. He struck out 2. He walked 2, didn't allow any runs. John King is quickly getting back into being called John King after he was tagged for 2 earned runs on a 6th-inning homer.
You know the guy I'm intrigued by is Jerpy. He was a top pick from a few years ago, and the thing that, go ahead, Matthew, his last name is being butchered all across town.
Jerpy is right.
Jerpy is right.
I'm just laughing because we're going back to exactly where we were at the trade deadline last year, where everyone's like, okay, how do we say all these names we got at the trade deadline last year? Because last year we spent a whole show, like, how do we say Sajaci, how do we say Robersay, and how do we say Jerpy? But you hit it right on the nail.
I think he's intriguing. I think there are times that it is so beneficial to have just weird, different looks coming out of your bullpen. He's one of the players or pitchers that I'm watching the rest of this spring to see how he fares. The other day, he had 2 strikeouts, got a pop out. He had 5 swings and misses, and a unique look potentially coming out of their pen. And I think that's a good thing, a really good thing. If you've ever seen Chris Sale pitch, he's Chris Sale, and then some, how he kind of slings it from the left side.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy to have. You know, the old Brewers first baseman named his son after Jerpy, and his name is Cooper.
Randy.
Just no.
Did you ever? Okay, I got to give you an old Jack Buck line from when he was doing play-by-play. Do you remember Mark Lemongello?
Yeah.
And this is when, a player, and Matthew, you'll hate this, but it happened. Sadly, Lyman Bostock passed away. He was murdered in Gary, Indiana. Great player, great hitter. And when Mark Lemongello was playing and Lyman Bostock was still around, Jack said, he said, Lemongello has a brother named just like Bostock of the Angels, Lyman Lemongello.
You have looked too far into some of these names.
I love doing it, though.
I know you do.
It's fun.
I know you do.
St. Louis City SC falling last night to the Houston Dynamo 1-0, so they're knocked out of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. 2-2 aggregate, so you don't play a third match. Houston advances on away goal tiebreaker. Congratulations to the Dynamo.
They were sloppy last night. That's
not
as
great.
sloppy as you're going to see them.
Passing.
Possession was nowhere. 5 of their last 18 matches, they've won. That's it. So not a great trend, but take some time off, regroup, and see what they got when they start up MLS play again.
Yeah.
I am a little bit worried when we are talking about health being a concern for them so early on. Is that, I mean, I know it is early in the season. You'd rather have it now maybe than later in the season, but still, 3 of the team's 4 center backs you had hurt or either entirely unavailable in the game. And then you had Nielsen, right, Rocc, that also had to exit the game.
Yeah, he got banged up. Apparently, it was just another muscle strain. It's not going to be a long-term thing. The Parker thing was weird because it appears that if they would have been trying to leg out a victory, whether it would have been a 0-0 tie or what have you, that they would have put Parker in for like the last 10 minutes or so based on Carnell's comments. But I have no idea if Yarrow was even available, but he traveled. And so the bigger issue, like Danny keeps saying, though, I mean, just it's a completely ineffective offense. I mean, that's what got him bumped from the playoffs. Is a slightly different issue that's causing it, but the bottom line is that's the undercurrent of a lot of the problems you've seen with City. How's the gold come off the rose a little bit? It's been the fact the offense isn't scoring goals, and that was it last night.
Mizzou is at Florida tonight. The Tigers 8-19, 0-14 in the SEC. Florida is a 13.5-point favorite in that game. And here in St. Louis over at Chaffetz Arena, the Billikens will host Richmond, the Spiders. And the Spiders are a 5.5-point Spiders.
The Spiders.
Scary.
Scary.
5.5-point favorite over the Billikens.
Wait, go back to the Mizzou game.
Yeah.
Their opponent is how much of a favorite?
Florida, number 24, Florida is a 13.5-point favorite. Ouch.
Are you guys taking that?
I would take Florida to cover in that game.
What was it, 14.5?
13.5.
13.5. There have been 10 men's teams in SEC history to finish with a winless conference record. And very well could be 11 coming up with the Missouri Tigers. Ouch.
History.
What are you laughing at, Matthew?
The things that Randy inspires in our already cesspool of listeners.
What do they do?
Well, I don't know if I can read
Don't
the
call
text
our
from the
listeners a
618.
cesspool.
Our listeners are not cesspool.
Very fine people.
Sorry. The people who text in. Is it okay if I call them a cesspool?
No, I appreciate them texting in.
No, I want them to keep doing it, but I'm still just commenting on what I'm seeing. 618, I'm sorry in advance. Randy, you want to read it?
No,
I don't even have it.
No.
I shouldn't read that? Okay.
No. That was given. That was a nickname for Oral Hershiser that was given by Chris Berman.
Yeah.
We don't need it. No.
We don't do that here.
We don't.
Well, we don't.
No, not on that one.
That's a Josh Innes thing.
Yeah, we don't do that.
Okay, well, coming up, I guess we should talk about that Justin Fields guy, huh?
Yes, that's a good idea, Brooke.
That is a great idea.
Yeah,
Don't you think so,
just
Dan?
ruined everything.
Absolutely. We're
Sorry,
definitely not going to read the 618. Sorry in advance if Oral Hershiser's nickname was not brought up, and it's not going to be brought up. We can't bring it up.
He's just asking a hypothetical.
It's been done.
So,
okay.
Steve Sachs has a kid, a heroic player.
Oh, God, here we go.
For the Dodgers is Oral
Dan, you
Hershiser.
did bring this back up.
And that family, the
Trying to
Sachs
end it.
family, names their kid after Oral Hershiser. I think that would be just such a nice thing for them to do because they don't win the 1988 World Series if they don't have Oral Hershiser.
So I'm looking at my rundown here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the celebrity line.
Tell us the Guerrero story. Lasorda and
9:30.
Guerrero about Steve Sachs.
So the celebrity line has the Blues analyst and 101 host Jamie Rivers at 9:30.
We got to get to him. So we'll talk about.
But I'll tell you, hold on, 9:15, Randy. Bears GM Ryan Poles on the possibility of trading quarterback Justin Fields and drafting a QB with the first pick in the draft. That's coming up next as we don't talk nicknames on 101 ESPN.
Hey, there's some great things happening at Schnucks, and you need to get involved. Let's first download the Schnucks Rewards app, okay? If you download the Schnucks Rewards app, then your child, age 7 to 11, can join a City SC player on the pitch as the players are introduced for the match. All you need to do is download the Schnucks Rewards app, and right there at the front, you've got the opportunity to click and get your youngster involved, and another youngster, same age, whether it's a sibling or a friend, they can get involved too. It really is a wonderful thing that Schnucks is doing as they partner with St. Louis City SC to get kids out with their sweeper stakes, to get them out on the pitch with the players before the match starts. It's an awesome thing. And again, it all comes from the Schnucks Rewards app. Download the Schnucks Rewards app today and get your kid, age 7 to 11, out on the pitch with a member of St. Louis City SC before a match that's coming up in the near future. You need to do it by March 5th. Go to the Schnucks Rewards app, download it today, and just click on Sweeper Stakes and get your kid involved. We talk a lot here about how America's sports fans seem to like the transaction more than the action. And the big topic right now in Chicago is not about the Cubs being in spring training or the White Sox or the Bulls' struggles or the Blackhawks and Connor Bedard. No, the big topic in Chicago is who's going to be quarterback next year. Some people want the Bears to keep Justin Fields. Some people want the Bears to trade Justin Fields and draft a quarterback. Others want them to keep Fields and draft a quarterback as well. Ryan Poles was at the Combine and said to the media about a possibility of a Justin Fields trade, quote, "It just depends on what opportunities pop up." He went on to say, "I will say this, if we go down that road, I want to do right by Justin as well. No one wants to live in gray. I know that's uncomfortable. I wouldn't want to be in that situation either. So we'll gather the information and we'll move as quickly as possible. We're not going to be in a rush, and we'll see what presents itself and what's best for the organization." Well, if you're talking about moving Justin Fields, if you're talking to other teams, that tells me that you're willing to, and you probably will. Otherwise, why would you even bother having the conversations? If you're that enamored of a quarterback, why would you? It's a quarterback. Why would you think of moving a quarterback and if you're not going to move him?
They are going to move him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's very clear that that's what the next step is here, because don't you guys think that if Poles doesn't take Caleb Williams, that it would be almost malpractice on his part?
I think getting under the money, too, with Fields is big. And you could just, start the clock then on a rookie deal with your QB. And if it's Caleb Williams or May, makes sense. I mean, it looks to be the top three guys are pretty deep, and you're going to make a pretty good decision on what you do. Now, that's not always the case, but I want to see Marvin Harrison with Fields. If I was going to stay with the pick and go number one, I'm looking at Marvin Harrison. Now, the other thing that you could do, though, is trade the pick and stockpile, up-end picks, higher draft picks in the first round, and get yourself some weapons and see what you can get. It's interesting. I think the whole thing's interesting, and the GM says, I want to do right by Justin. He's going to be fine. This is a business. I want to do right by people, too, but this is a business, man.
That's exactly what Ryan Poles said. He said, I've been in contact with Justin's team and let them know kind of what we're looking at, how things might play out, and that we'll continue to communicate. It's part of this business. It's a unique situation. Here's the thing. I sit here as a layman, and if I don't think a quarterback is capable of leading me to a Super Bowl after his third season in the league, I don't see it changing in the 4th or the 5th seasons, and especially when the money is going to go up. So if I'm the Bears, I'm going to move Justin Fields, and I'm going to draft a guy that I think is capable of being a Super Bowl quarterback. You don't find players, you don't find quarterbacks, well, rarely. Well, no, never. You never find quarterbacks that start as rookies, play 3 years of mediocre football, and then wind up being in Super Bowls. You have extenuating circumstances like you had with Phil Simms, where he was hurt for much of his first 3 years. Most quarterbacks that wind up in the Super Bowl are, it after their first 3 years of playing.
I don't think that the Bears have been exactly perfect in this situation with Justin Fields either. So what are some of the lessons, though, that they have learned from Justin Fields that they can take into drafting Caleb Williams and developing him into the quarterback that they want and need?
Well, number one, you need to make sure that your new offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, is capable of getting the most out of a quarterback. Waldron did a really good job with Geno Smith in Seattle. To me, that's one thing you have to do. The other thing, when you talk about the best way to do it, look at the way Patrick Mahomes was developed. Maybe you do keep Justin Fields playing for a year and either enhance or decrease his value, but you let Caleb Williams sit and watch and learn for a year.
Just going to bring up that point, Randy, as you talked about, these guys that start early and then don't seem to have success. They don't get to Super Bowls. Why would Caleb Williams, as good as we all think he's going to be, why would he be any different? Maybe sit him a little bit, let him learn, and then don't put so much pressure where everything is just extremely fast on him. Let him ease into the position. And, the prototype of doing that is Green Bay with what they've done. I mean, if you can do that and you can afford yourself the time as a GM to understand you're going to take your lumps and not get fired, head coach too, why wouldn't you do it that way?
And playing as a rookie is so hard. C.J. Stroud is such an anomaly. You guys know the all-time record for interceptions in a season by a quarterback?
No.
28 by a rookie named Peyton Manning.
Oh, yeah, I did know that. That's right.
Yeah, I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's hard to play as a rookie. And
it is.
You can turn out to be great, but it's a rare occurrence that you get the Roethlisberger or the Dan Marino that leads you to greatness and or the C.J. Stroud, who puts up great numbers as a rookie.
If you're the GM, too, it's a game of poker.
Yeah.
You're going to hold your hand until the last final minute where you think that you're getting the best deal for your team, and if that means trading him, you do. And if it means you keep him, you do. But it's a game of poker right now.
One other thing that I think I would do, if indeed there is quality return for Justin Fields, and I'm talking about a number one pick. I don't think there is. If it's anything less than a number one, I'd just keep Fields and let him be my placeholder for Williams. But if somebody is willing to offer number one, then I can go out and sign a free agent quarterback to be my placeholder. But I'm not starting Caleb Williams on opening day.
Probably not, because you have to develop him. But I do think it's just really interesting. You have to go out and get Caleb Williams, but I think that they also hopefully have learned some of the mistakes that they might have made with Justin Fields and making sure that they put their new quarterback in the best position to win and grow and develop and figuring out what that is. Now, did you guys see the rumors coming out yesterday that the Falcons are supposedly very, very interested in bringing in Justin Fields?
Yeah. Am I the only one that likes him? I think he can play.
I think he can play, too. I personally think it was just not the right situation with the Bears.
His first head coach was fired and the entire staff after his rookie year. Then after the second year, he's hurt all year. And then and they're messing around with Andy Dalton.
Exactly.
And then the third year, he's got another bad offensive coordinator in Luke Getsy, who didn't do a good job, and now they've got Waldron. But the problem that they have is you get into this downward spiral. It's a cycle, and it's hard to get out of. And maybe the best thing for both sides is for Fields to go somewhere else. It's really hard to rebound after, kind of like Bradford here, after you've been through so many different coaches and so many coordinators in the early part of your career. It's really hard to bounce back.
The pressure on the GM, too, is that if he goes to another situation, you can say these were the mitigating factors that led to him not having success. And if Caleb Williams goes to somebody else and explodes, you're fired.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tough situation to be in, but that's why they're in that position.
Yeah, and he better be great, because if you take him and Williams isn't and you trade Fields and he winds up being great for somebody else, you're fired. You have to have your guy be great, whether it's Fields or Caleb Williams. If you're Ryan Poles, you need your guy to be great.
In that situation, too, is there any way that you could even pass on taking the quarterback? If the quarterback is predicted to be first overall.
To Dan's point.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that it's a situation where you have to do it anyway.
And there's the Fashanu, the tackle from Penn State. I don't think he's a number one pick, but you trade that pick. If you aren't going to use it on a quarterback, you trade down, stay in the top 5 or 6, and take an offensive tackle, or you take one of the 2 receivers, either Harrison or Odunze from Washington. But you need, if you have DJ Moore and one of those 2 on the outside for Justin Fields, pretty dynamic.
It's a different story. Yep. And that's what I'm saying. He played well down the stretch. Mm-hmm. Whether you like him or not, he played a lot better down the stretch. And maybe that's enough to convince you, if you add some weapons for him, that you'd say, okay, this guy's got a shot. We don't want to send that first overall pick somewhere else. And we're able to get Marvin Harrison Jr.
The other thing you have to do is make sure that your quarterback and your setup and your system is prepared to play in Chicago in December.
It's a good point.
It's one of the reasons the Bears have never had a great quarterback, because it's hard to be a great quarterback in Chicago in December.
Mm-hmm.
That's Brooke. That's Dan. I'm Randy. Coming up, we're going to head up to Edmonton, and we're going to talk to our buddy Jamie Rivers, co-host of The Fast Lane here on 101 ESPN, and the analyst for Blues hockey. Try to analyze that next on 101 ESPN. We have a house in our neighborhood that has a custom sunroom. Their deck was converted into a sunroom by Chesterfield Fence and Deck, and they have the big screen TV in there, and they have the ceiling fan, and they can open up the screens during the beautiful spring and fall months here in St. Louis. It really is beautiful, and Chesterfield Fence and Deck did magnificent work for them, and they'll do great work for you. If you have a sunroom or a screen room, or if you want a sunroom or a screen room, this is the company to get in touch with. Chesterfield Fence and Deck is out in Chesterfield Valley. Their number is 800-300-4054. You can find them on the web at chesterfieldfence.com, and they're going to send a professional out to your home to take measurements, provide you a free, no-obligation project design, and then show you pictures of some of the jobs that they've done with sunrooms and screen rooms and fences and decks, and give you some ideas about what makes a great outdoor project. And if you tell them Randy sent you, get 48 months interest-free financing on your next outdoor project with Chesterfield Fence and Deck. Again, at chesterfieldfence.com. Call 800-300-4054. Chesterfield Fence and Deck, the sign you have the very best.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Blues last night fall to the Winnipeg Jets 4-2. They'll try to jump back into the W column tonight, facing off against the Oilers at 7:30 puck drop. You can catch the pregame show right here on your home for the St. Louis Blues, 101 ESPN, starting at 6:30. Last night, St. Louis City SC knocked out of the CONCACAF Champions Cup with a 1-0 loss to the Houston Dynamo. They lose that round one matchup on a 2-2 aggregate, with Houston advancing on a away goal tiebreaker. City back in action coming up this weekend, facing off against New York City FC in MLS play. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your roads and shop 24/7 at londoff.com and londoffautoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
We're talking everything St. Louis Blues as we head into the Blues Booth. Presented by Boardwalk Hardwood Floors, a proud partner of your St. Louis Blues. Find your perfect new floor at our 4 convenient locations and online at boardwalkhardwood.com.
To the celebrity line, Jamie Rivers is standing by. Brooke, Danny Mac, and Randy and Rivs. Good morning. How's everything in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada this morning?
Oh, it is beautiful out here, Randy. About 85 degrees, sunny, just everything you'd want it to be.
Did you communicate with home? Did you realize that it was 84 here yesterday and then 28 when we got up this morning?
Oh, I didn't have to communicate with anybody. The world communicated it with me. Everybody back home let me know. Hey, how's that going up there? You guys are freezing your tails off. Hey, that's all right. I'm sweating over here.
Yeah, but then this morning we had your weather. This morning when we came in here, it was 28.
Yes.
Yeah, the world is wacky. Is it Mother Nature? It's like she got totally pissed off and wanted to regulate the market a little bit in St. Louis.
You are so right, man. I don't know what we did to her. Come on, Mom.
I don't know. You know what? I'll take the blame. It's probably my fault.
Well, Jamie, one way that we have seen, and Drew Bannister made this very clear, that he likes to hold players accountable by reducing their ice time. We saw it with Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou, and we also saw it last night with reduced ice time for Kasperi Kapanen and Kevin Hayes. At a time when you have players who should be stepping up in big situations, instead you're starting to see some guys fall behind. Do those two fit into that category, and what have you seen from them?
Well, I think that, look, not everybody has a great game every night, and it happens. And over the course of the season, usually everybody gets a turn at, being in the so-called doghouse. It's just the way it works. But last night it happened to be a couple of guys that, Kevin Hayes, it just wasn't working for him. And for Kasperi Kapanen, it was a tough game. And, it's the way it works. I think that Drew Bannister will have a good talk with them. He seems to be that guy that communicates really well with the players, especially players that he benches or holds accountable, however you want to word it. And usually those guys accept that and come back and have a better game following, said punishment. And so I would imagine those two play better tonight here in Edmonton.
What is your strongest memory, and I can't believe this happened, but I'm just going to guess that it did. What is your strongest memory of being in Mike Keenan's doghouse?
Oh, God. I don't know if I've ever gotten out of it, Randy, to be honest. Yeah, I think he just hated me from the very beginning just because I was a young player. Literally, every day you'd come in and do something new, and the shoes you're wearing, your haircut, the way you pass the puck, the length of your stick. I mean, found several reasons to not like players, but I'll use Jimmy Roberts probably as a better measuring stick because Jimmy was a real fair guy, and I love Jimmy. But one thing for Jimmy is he would say that he didn't want any of his defensemen making passes out of their end on their back end. And he'd get on guys all the time. So, myself, but every now and then the backhand pass is available. Like, it's really the best choice until it gets knocked down and somebody scores, of course. And there's one time I floated a backhand. It was beautiful. Randy had good height on it, nice spin on the puck, and it was going tape to tape. And then it got knocked down, and guy scored right in the middle of the slot in our own end. And Jimmy just told us, just basically said listen, I call that a bus pass. What are you talking about? He goes, you pass the puck like that again, you're riding the buses in the minors for the next month.
Love it. Hey, Rivs, I brought up this point earlier on a positive note. I don't think that we're taking into account the body of work of Robert Thomas and just the year that he's had. The Blues, we know, are bottom 5 on 5, but yet he's top 20 in points. He's, I think, top 15 still in assists. It's really under the radar, the kind of year that he's putting together.
Yeah, he's playing awesome, man. He really is. You know, we're going to focus. Obviously, a lot of Blues fans are going to focus on the game in Detroit because that's recent and he got benched and there's a lot of drama that surrounds it. But apart from that, Robert Thomas has been head and shoulders your best player on this team. I mean, for me, he falls in the category of like Selke Trophy candidate.
Exactly.
Because he plays every night against the other team's top lines. He's out there killing penalties. He's got shorthanded goals. He's running your power play. I mean, the maturation of this player throughout the course of this season has been incredible. And when you even isolate the game in Detroit, then the benching and all that stuff that we've talked about for the last couple of days, look at the response you got last night. You didn't get a pouty player. You didn't get a guy that was upset. You got a guy that came out like his hair was on fire. And he was dominant. He was playing. I mean, that whole line responded very well, but Robert Thomas in particular had himself a game. So I absolutely love where Robert Thomas's game is at. It makes me excited to think about where his game could be next year or the year after even. And I do think that at some point he'll be in the discussion for a Selke Trophy.
Speaking of a good response from players, what did you think about that fight from the captain, Bradish, and a captain-on-captain fight, I should say, against Adam Lowry?
Well, it's always Jenner, for that matter. He always steps up in those situations. And, you know, I talked to him about it, and he just was like, I didn't like the way we started the game in particular. He said, I felt like we needed something. And he knew that Adam Lowry would respond because he's wired very much the same way as Braden Shen. And so, you know, Shenner just went after him and didn't care that he gave up, 3 or 4 inches and about 20 pounds on the guy. And, you know, just grip and rip was probably the strategy at that point. And he did real well. And I thought it was great. You know, I mean, look, guys, it's no secret. I love the way Braden Shen plays. I think he's an awesome leader. And I think that he recognized it was a moment for him to step up, and he did.
Jamie, the Blues have 5 games, including tonight, before the trade deadline. I'm not going to ask you what they're going to do. No one knows what they're going to do. But from a player's perspective, what are the next 5 games like when you're 6 points out of a playoff spot? Things are kind of trending in the wrong direction. What's it like from a player's perspective leading up to March 8th?
Well, yeah, you're right, Dan. It's weird how things have changed here in the last 6 days or so for the Blues. I think as a player, you always believe that we can fix this. I mean, that's always I would hope that that's the attitude of guys. And I think it is just, you know, we can fix this and we can get into the playoffs. We want to do this. We've worked so hard. And as a team, usually inside the room, you're like, a lot of people don't believe we can get there. Let's prove everybody wrong. You know, you try to adopt that us against the world mentality because guys are competitive, man. They want it. They want to make the playoffs. They want to win hockey games. Nobody likes to lose. Nobody likes to get to this part of the season and underperform. Nobody likes to get to this part of the season and be the one that gets traded. Because when you're the guy that gets traded, even though it's probably an acquisition where somebody wants you, it feels like the team that you were just on is getting rid of you because you couldn't get the job done. And so for me, it's always a pride thing. And it's tough to keep the noise out, especially right now, like we're up in Canada, and the media is, you know, in St. Louis, you'll have 10 or 11 reporters. There's 40 people at the rink just asking questions regarding the trade deadline and all sorts of crazy stuff. So it's tough to keep it at bay, but you just got to go out and play. Do your job, man. Work as hard as you possibly can. Win a couple of hockey games. You know, it's not impossible. They're on the outside looking in. But you have to always look at that and feel like you have a chance. And then if the day comes where trades are happening and your team changes directions or Doug Armstrong pivots and starts to sell off, hey, man, so be it. It is what it is at that point. And then from that point on, you want to make sure that this doesn't happen again next year.
Hey, Rivs, before we let you go, you are a Blue and a Blues fan through and through. But that being said, it's got to be really cool to be up close and personal and get a chance to see what McDavid and Draisaitl do on a regular basis. They're fun to watch.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, man. You see these guys play, and they're both so dominant in their own way. Leon Draisaitl he's just a horse out there. He's a big guy. He protects the puck well. He's obviously so skilled, and he's a presence on the ice. Whereas McDavid, who is a presence as well, but it's different, man. He operates at warp speed. Watching him play live, it's almost like someone hits the fast forward button on your television, and because when he zips through the neutral zone at full speed, it's wild to see a guy move that fast and then still exude such skill at a high level the way he does. So it's cool. It's cool to watch those guys play. It's fun, and it's even better when your team can find a way to shut them down.
Yeah.
Like the last game we played against those guys, didn't shut them down. I think McDavid still had 3 points, but you come up and you win that game, and it's for me, it's got to feel good as a group to know that you were able to beat those types of guys because they are so dominant on a nightly basis that you got to take these little small victories when you can. But, man, it's fun to watch them play.
Jamie, we were looking back at the anniversary yesterday of Gretzky being traded to St. Louis. You were a member of the Blues organization at that time. What do you remember about that, playing with Gretzky, just that special night in St. Louis when the Blues and Mike Keenan, to his credit, pulled off that deal?
Oh, my God. I'll never forget my first time meeting Wayne Gretzky. It's weird. I was 19 or 20. I think I was 20 years old at the time, and we had made the trade for Gretz, and so I remember I went into the rink early that day because, I wanted to meet Wayne Gretzky. Like, this is kind of cool. And Gretz was already there, and he was sitting in his stall, reading the newspaper, having a coffee. And you remember how the old room was set up where from the lounge, Danny, you could see all the way through to the locker room.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was kind of like in the lounge, like poking my head through the doorway, taking a look and looking at Wayne Gretzky, almost like he wasn't real. I have no idea what's going on. It's a weird thing that then I thought never kind of hurrying out to get changed into my under gear so I could get into the room and act like I was going to get busy. But all I wanted to do is go meet Wayne Gretzky. And so I walked over to my stall, put my stuff in, and then walked over towards Wayne Gretzky and I introduced myself, said, "Hey, Wayne, Jamie Rivers," and he's like, "Oh, hey, I'm Wayne." And I'm like, "No kidding. No, you're Wayne, huh?" Didn't know that. And it blew me away because he knew stuff about me right away. So when I introduced myself, he's like, "Oh, yeah, Jamie." He's like, "Hey, man, you had a great junior career. Hey, wow, a lot of points for a defenseman back up in the OHL." I was blown away. They're like, why would Wayne Gretzky even know anything about me, for that matter, let alone anything about my junior career and have an opinion on it? And he did. And I hit it off with Wayne right away. He was an excellent teammate, obviously a fantastic player, but just an awesome dude, man. Like, he was Wayne Gretzky, the greatest player in the world, and he was an easy teammate, if that makes any sense at all.
That's so cool. Ribs, we'll be tuned in tonight. Have a great time. Have a great day in Edmonton, and we'll see you back here soon.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
Thank you, brother. Jamie Rivers, Blues analyst on Bally Sports, and, of course, member of the Fast Lane here on 101 ESPN. Coming up, we're going to head down the stretch with Rocc and Roll here on 101 ESPN.
Hey everyone, it's Brooke here, and this year we decided it was time to make a major upgrade to our home by updating our bathroom. We have this house in U City. It's over 100 years old, and we absolutely love it, but we didn't exactly like our main bathroom. But this is really the first time we've ever done a big and major project like this before, and we weren't really sure where to start, so we decided to reach out to one of our great sponsors here of 101 ESPN, and that is E&B Granite. E&B Granite's team, they visited our house for a free consultation, and they came up with a vision of how to really transform our bathroom. My favorite part of working with E&B Granite was stopping by their showroom to explore their large selection of in-stock custom countertops and all of the cabinet options that they had. It was so much fun picking out colors for the new bathroom. Jen was the one who was working with us, and she has just been fantastic. She already had so many great ideas for us that fit within our budget. And that's what they're doing there at E&B Granite for over 20 years, just turning visions into realities. So schedule your free consultation by calling 314-645-9300 or go online to enbgranite.com or stop by their amazing showroom today and mention that I sent you.
Anything on the show, you can check it out on our podcast brought to you by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Whether you want it on the app or at 101ESPN.com, you can listen to us any time of the day, which is pretty cool, and we're glad that you do that. All right, time for Rock and Roll. Matthew, what do you got for us?
I got a little non-sports thing for you guys because I saw this yesterday and I got to ask you guys about this. Have you seen the story about the Wendy's new surge pricing?
Yes.
Wendy's is going to add digital menus to all of their locations by 2025. It's going to cost them $20 million to put in these new menus and all the other things that's going to go into this, because essentially what it's going to be is during surge moments when the store is extremely busy, extremely crowded, or on the opposite, when it's completely dead, they will change the prices of certain popular items. In a recent poll done, they asked consumers if they consider that price gouging, and 65% of consumers said yes, they do. I'm wondering what the other 35% of customers think it actually is, because this just sounds like price gouging.
There are several Wendy's in the area.
You are a connoisseur, my man.
I am. One up on page where if there's one car, it's a surge. And that's just how slow they are. It feels like it's a surge. So I don't know how they're going to determine what a real surge is.
Especially, and nothing against Wendy's. Love Wendy's. Great burger. Now, I will say, Wendy's was at its best when they had the yellow wrappers on the burgers.
Yeah.
That was like prime Wendy's right there. Yeah. So what will count as a surge? Just specifically lunchtime, they're going to add an extra $1, and it is probably around an extra $1. Does this go back to the employees because they're saying this is a lot on the employees and we want to make sure that they're getting rewarded?
They're not going to raise compensation for their employees.
I'm
this
saying,
is about
does that
raising
go
profit
to the
margins.
Employees? I don't know.
The only comments coming from Wendy's have been about their projected increases in profits. There hasn't been a single comment on how they're going to try to turn this back into the employees so that they don't get overwhelmed, or they're compensated when they're getting overwhelmed at 1 a.m. in the morning during, on a Friday night or what have you.
They're open at 1 a.m.?
Something like 11 p.m. Like, that's pretty late now for most fast food restaurants. There's not a lot that are open after like 10 o'clock. So, like, if you're open at like 11 p.m. on a Friday, I pass two Wendy's sometimes when I'm coming back from certain games, and I'll see both of them with a line around the entire building at 11 o'clock.
Really?
Yeah.
I was going to say, if Taco Bell did surge prices at a certain time,
Taco Bell would also do well.
Then they would do really well, and people would deal with it.
Why not just have a business where you really, when you have a surge, you're still super efficient and you get people through the line in a blink?
Like a Chick-fil-A?
There you go. Thank you very much.
Randy loves Chick-fil-A, which I enjoy because I do as well. And they're very efficient. there's a whole system, and it's too long for me to explain to break down how it specifically works. But one, there's actually a way within their employee program to grow within the program. There's also a chance for you to get college scholarships. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities that they present to their employees that makes sure that you would want to stay there.
Ted Drew's does that. A lot of kids went and worked at Ted Drew's and worked for years, and Ted Drew's was able to put them through school.
That's awesome.
It's awesome. Yeah, I had a lot of buddies that benefited from that.
And by the way, I was not joking earlier. I literally have spent, as the only car in line at Wendy's, I've spent 15 minutes waiting.
Yep.
So I don't know what they determine what a surge is.
They're making it fresh for you, Randy, right then and there.
That's great, but what if I'm the fourth car in line and it takes me an hour? Then that's a surge? I don't want to pay more because I'm getting my food slower.
The fun part's going to be when you're behind a car and you can see the menu and you can see that the Baconator's like $7.99, and then in the time that car pulls up and then you pull up, the Baconator's going to go from $7.99 to $8.59, and you're going to have to wonder, do I break this menu in front of me right now out of pure anger?
It is a tasty burger.
Hell of a burger.
It's price gouging. Like let's call a spade a spade. Like this isn't dynamic pricing.
It's dynamic pricing.
That's price gouging.
Well, no, it's supply and demand.
Because we're more busy, we're now going to charge you more than our advertised price. Is price gouging.
The core of our economic system is supply and demand.
Yeah, but there used to be some limits to that.
Well, but look at the NFL. If you're the NFL, right?
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, if you're the NFL and you see Super Bowl tickets going for $8,000 on the secondary market, why should you be charging $500?
But isn't that why they tried to calm down scalping in like the 90s and stuff before secondary markets became like the regular thing? Isn't that why they tried to tamp down secondary markets?
It didn't work, but here, why do the Cardinals charge more for Cubs and Yankees and Red Sox series?
Supply and demand.
Supply and demand. Yeah, and so I have no problem with supply and demand as long as the product is good. I just don't understand how a surge is going to work at Wendy's. I wish somebody would explain that to me.
And we can find out by tomorrow.
Let me say, the Frosty is great.
That's going to be one of the items that gets surged, by the way.
Oh, yeah. And the burger is great. So it's
you
not.
Do have a great burger.
I don't have a problem with their product. I have a problem with their service.
Randy's had some very personal experiences here. You can tell.
Yeah.
It hurts you.
But that's part of the product. And you're going to be thinking in your head, if you're just a consumer, you're going to be thinking in your head, well, I already am kind of annoyed by this, how long it takes me to get this one burger for this price. Am I willing to pay an extra $1 for the burger if the service is still what it is?
What's Dave have to say about this?
I bet Dave's pretty mad.
I don't think he is.
I bet Dave's grandchildren aren't.
I have another question for you guys.
Okay, we've got a minute.
Sometimes I wonder why you even put this information out there if you're Wendy's or another company, because honestly, when I go there, unless it's like a big dramatic difference, like $5 added or $10 added, if we're just talking about $1 or $2, do you honestly know off the top of your head the exact price of a Wendy's burger?
No idea.
Clueless.
So then why put out a story that you know is going to get you a lot of scrutiny like that?
Right, yeah.
Just do it and then see if anybody notices.
Talk about making the dollar menu the $2 menu, right?
Exactly.
Come on.
Just don't advertise it.
Don't say it. Great job today by our producer, audio, video engineer, the one, the only Matthew Rocc. Thanks, sir.
Pleasure.
Brooke, did you have fun today?
Yes.
That's good. Daniel, you were sensational again.
We want to see your face. Who said that? You want to see my face?
See my face. Thanks for the donuts, man.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes.
Danny Mac always taking care of us.
Pleasure.
Temptation donuts.
Yeah, we get
pleasure.
See? And we thank you for tuning in, texting in, and being a part of the show for all of us until tomorrow morning at 7. Have a great hump day, everyone.
That's right.
Hey, if you're buying a new car or truck, go to autoloanpro.com and download their game plan.